Evening, everyone. I'd like to call this public meeting of Council to order for February 21st, 2023, beginning with our Pembroke Land Acknowledgement Statement. As we gather today, I would respectfully acknowledge on behalf of Council and the community that the City of Pembroke resides on the unceded traditional territory of the Algonquin people. We thank the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. It is with this statement that we honor and respect the Algonquins on whose land we reside. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda. I have the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Purcell. Those in favor? That is carried. Under new business, we have Planning Advisory Adjustment Committee Z12023, which is 574 Pembroke Street East. This meeting has been called to consider the application under the City of Pembroke Zoning Bylaw 2020-05 to rezone the property municipally known as 574 Pembroke Street East from a residential type 1 zone to a residential type 2-34 R2 34 zone. Mr. Unruh, can you please report on how notice was given?
Yes, Your Worship. Notice was given by mail to all owners of properties within 120 meters radius of the subject land and was posted on site on December 23rd, 2022.
Thank you. I'd ask from a planning report from Mr. Hutton, who's present this evening, the planning technician regarding this application.
Thank you, Your Worship. The applicant, Alex Plummer, has submitted a site plan proposing the construction of a semi-detached dwelling, 2 dwelling units, with 2 secondary dwelling units for a total of 4 dwelling units at 574 Pembroke Street East. 574 Pembroke Street East is currently zoned residential type 1 R1 by zoning bylaw 2020-05, which only allows for single detached dwellings. A single detached dwelling constructed in 1909 exists on the property. According to the applicant's proposal, this existing building would be demolished to make way for the proposed new development. While the neighborhood immediately to the south of 574 Pembroke Street East is largely made up of single detached dwellings in R1 zones, Pembroke Street East itself is lined with a diverse mixture of residential and commercial zoning, from R1 to R4, C1 to C2 exceptions, and institutional, all within a 1 kilometer distance of 574 Pembroke Street East. Immediately abutting the property of this application is 580 Pembroke Street East, which itself was the subject of an approved zoning bylaw amendment, file Z6-2021, granting the exact relief being requested by the current application. Previously vacant land, 580 Pembroke Street East, now has newly constructed by building permit 2022-029, semi-detached dwellings, which consists of 2 primary dwelling units and 2 secondary dwelling units for a total of 4 dwelling units on the property. The proposed development of this application will mirror the new construction found at the immediately abutting property. 574 Pembroke Street East easily meets or exceeds all required R2 zone provisions for a semi-detached dwelling, including all of the itemized requirements listed in your report, from minimum lot area, minimum lot frontage, minimum lot depth, minimum front yard setback, minimum rear yard setback, and minimum interior side yard setback. All other R2 provisions for semi-detached dwellings are met or exceeded. Therefore, the application is strongly in keeping with the intent of the zoning bylaw. Regarding parking, zoning bylaw 2020-05, section 3.292 requires a minimum of 2 spaces per dwelling unit for semi-detached dwellings and a single space per dwelling unit for secondary dwelling units. This means that the proposed development would require 6 standard parking spaces. According to the submitted site plan, the development can accommodate more than the required 6 spaces. However, relief is required to allow for these spaces to be in the form of 2 driveways, each with a width of 20 feet. The zoning bylaw further states that the width of a driveway shall not exceed 20 feet. Therefore, this relief is requested to be included under the proposed site-specific zoning. Further, the zoning bylaw states the minimum distance between 2 separate driveways on 1 lot shall be 25 feet. As the separation distance shown on the submitted site plan is 9 feet, 16 feet short of the requirement, this relief is also requested under the proposed site-specific zoning. The property at 574 Pembroke Street East is designated residential under the city's official plan 2016. The application is strongly in keeping with the intent of the official plan. According to the official plan, the City of Pembroke will encourage all forms of residential intensification that creates a potential supply of new housing units. This will be encouraged. Council's policy is that through intensification of land use in existing built-up areas involving infill, redevelopment, and the conversion of existing buildings, Pembroke will continue to accommodate new residential units within a built-up area. The proposed zoning is strongly in keeping with this direction in the official plan, as the proposed semi-detached dwelling with 2 secondary dwelling units constructed on existing residential land will contribute to intensifying housing stock in an already built-up area. The official plan further states that to promote efficient and pleasant residential environments, and that neighborhoods shall be maintained to include such facilities as a school, park, local shopping facilities, a community center. Located within a 1 kilometer radius of 574 Pembroke Street East are Highview Public School and Our Lady of Lourdes Elementary School, Kinsman Park and Kinsman Pool, Care4 Community Health Services, and highway commercial zones along Pembroke Street East. 574 Pembroke Street East is located directly on Pembroke Street East, which is designated by Schedule B of the official plan as an arterial road. This provides for strong vehicular transportation links to both the east and west ends of the city via Pembroke Streets east and west, as well as to the arterials of McKay Street, River Road, Paul Martin Drive, and Angus Campbell Drive and Bell Street. For pedestrian traffic, Pembroke Street East has maintains sidewalks on both its northern and southern sides. The Provincial Policy Statement 2020 states that land use patterns within settlement areas shall also be based on a range of uses and opportunities for intensification and redevelopment where this can be accommodated. This application is consistent with the current provincial policy statement, and therefore the Planning Department is recommending the approval of the zoning bylaw amendment for 574 Pembroke Street East from a residential type 1 zone to a residential type 2-34 zone.
Thank you, Mr. Hutton. Has there been any opposition to this application?
No opposition has been received, Your Worship.
Okay, Mr. Hutton, has there been any support for the application?
The applicant, Mr. Plummer, is present here this evening to represent the application.
Mr. Plummer, did you want to come forward? Good evening. If you
Yes.
wanted to address committee in respect to this item.
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Would you like to add anything?
Oh, no, sorry, I didn't, everything was spot on that Owen said, so I believe everything was absolutely correct, so.
Thank you. I'd ask for a report from the Chair of Planning and Development Committee of Council regarding the Planning Advisory and Adjustment Committee's comments regarding this application.
Thank you, Your Worship, and members of council, Mr. Plummer. Thank you for being here. I believe that, as the Planning Act specifies, this falls within the parameters of intensification, et cetera. And there was one question at the meeting in regards to slope of the driveway towards the roadway and whether there was any issues with safety. And we were advised that there wasn't, that with proper maintenance, et cetera, it would provide for a number of units to help provide adequate housing for folks in our community. There was no other comments, I believe, from the committee, unless Councillor Keel had any. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Giacono. Any questions from members of council this evening? Seeing none. If you wish to be notified of council's decision, please contact Mr. Hutton at City Hall. And I'd ask for a motion to adjourn. I have the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Keel. We are adjourned.
For Tuesday, February 21st to order. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Could I have a motion to approve the meeting agenda? Moved by Councillor Jackno, second by Councillor Keel. All in favor? Approved. The minutes have been circulated for the meeting of February 7th. Are there any errors or omissions? Seeing none, could I have a motion to accept? Moved by Councillor Purcell, second by Councillor Keel. All in favor? Approved. So welcome. We have a delegation tonight, and I'll let you introduce yourself. It's a delegation on behalf of the Affordable Housing Alliance of the Ottawa Valley. So welcome, Cameron. I'll let you start. Or Ish. Okay, Ish, hi. Okay, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Mayor, councilors. It's great to be here. I've never been in your council chamber before.
Never been in your council chamber before, and I appreciate the welcome. Thank you very much. I was married in this building 50 years ago, or 48 years ago, so I have been in the building before, but not in the chamber. So it's very nice. Very nice to be here. We're here on behalf of the Affordable Housing Alliance of the Ottawa Valley. This is an informal coalition that was formed after a meeting that I organized in Killaloe last May. And people from really all over, from many parts of Renfrew County and the city of Pembroke attended this meeting. And we just, it was basically a brainstorming meeting, and out of it emerged this alliance that we created later in the summer. You've received our W5 that we put together a couple of weeks ago. We have, as you can see on our letterhead, we have some outstanding people from around the county who are involved. Your Deputy Mayor Brian, of course, is with us. Nadir Almani from the motel owner in Eganville, a couple of staffers from MV Township, including Suzanne Klatt and Helen Gutowski, Barbara Kraft-Kuyak from MV as well, a couple of councilors from KHR Township, Maureen McMillan and Bill Smith. Cameron is on our steering committee, Maria Robinson, Naw Township Councilor, and myself. I think there might be one or two others, but as you can see, we have an outstanding group of people from an array of backgrounds, an array of political backgrounds and beliefs, but we're all united in one thing, which is that we see a real urgent need everywhere we look. It's not just a city thing, as we know. It's not just a Pembroke thing. It's everywhere in the Ottawa Valley, just as it is pretty much everywhere in Canada at this point. Housing is a real problem. What we're talking about here is affordable housing. What is affordable housing? There's different definitions. 30% of your income is one where housing doesn't cost more than 30% of your income is one rule of thumb. There's others, but the point is that housing for people who are working, who have retirement income, but still can't find places to live, and there are a lot of them like that at this point, as you all well know. Why is it such a problem? Well, a number of things have contributed to the affordable housing crisis that we're experiencing. But it really hit the wall during the pandemic when the real estate prices went up. Many homeowners sold. Many people who were renting homes were forced out of those homes. And very little rental housing has been built over the years. Really, both the provincial and federal governments got out of the business of supporting affordable housing almost a quarter century ago, and we're now dealing with the results of this, so we've got to go back the other way. Who is affected? Everybody's affected, but in particular, businesses are affected. When you can't find employees who can afford to live in your town, you've got a real big problem. When young workers leave the area who have the skills that we need to do the work that's needed and who can take care of this older generation, including myself, we have a real big problem. And if they can't find places to live, they're going to leave, and they are leaving. So we're here to talk to you about what municipalities like the city of Pembroke can do and how we can all work together, because it does have to be a working together thing. We can't be working in silos. Our alliance has been talking with and had support from staff in the county of Renfrew. Laura Lipinski, Jennifer Dombrowski have been involved, and we are working, and Cameron will tell you a good deal more about it. She's the nuts and bolts person. I'm just a storyteller. But we're working to bring a number of area municipalities together, to work together for solutions that work for all of us. You'll see that there are a number of measures listed on this W5, things that municipalities can do, home sharing, zoning policies, working with local nonprofits and co-ops, creating tax classes, offering land. These are the kinds of things that municipalities can do, and Cameron will talk about these things in far greater detail than I can. So, and then we will be asking if you can take the next steps, working on this problem as a municipality, striking a committee, working with our alliance, and committing some staff time and resources, because whatever you decide, you're going to have to deal with this problem. Whether it's more policing or shelters or what have you, every community in the country has this problem, and you're going to have to deal with it, and to deal with it in a proactive, constructive way that will help our community in the long run is I think, what we all want.
All right. Thank you, Ish. Is that, maybe I'll move it a little closer. So essentially, this project and the Alliance is very heart-centered. There have been a lot of stories that people have told us that are, totally break your heart. In North Algona, Wilberforce Township, there's a lot of people who are living in trailers or in seasonal accommodations, or even, like, there was a guy who's living in a barn, and in the minus 41 temperature weather, we're going to lose people. And the greatest surprise that, for myself personally, that's come out of this is that there's a lot of people who work full-time and they can't find housing. There's people who work at the library and they have respectable housing and an education, and they can't find housing, and they're living in someone's driveway in a trailer because that is all that is available. It's a lack of housing at all, let alone just affordable housing. I own a business in Pembroke, and I've tried to hire staff, and it's amazing that a young couple, if they both can't have full-time work, can't live here, and they have to move away. They have to move to the city to find affordable housing and also the kind of accommodation that they need. So these were initially sort of the motivating factors, but there's also, I work for North Algona, Wilberforce Township, and I do economic development. And I see this as an economic development issue as well. It's not social housing that we're talking about, although that is obviously a major issue. And I grew up in Pembroke, so I know that social housing does play a factor in Pembroke, especially because a lot of people do come here for services, and the hospital is here and all that kind of thing. So the solution Pembroke comes up with is going to have to have some sort of accommodation for that and understanding for that. I noticed at our town hall, which there was a couple people here that attended, that there were a lot of stories that were involving drug addiction and some other mental health issues and that kind of thing. And I do think Pembroke does, to a greater extent face those issues, but we can relieve the crunch with affordable housing, which is a separate issue from social housing. So in North Algona, we right off the bat just needed like an instant solution, and so our local committee came up with a short-term solution. We're working on medium and long-term solutions as well, but building housing obviously is like a big task and costs a lot of money. So our immediate solution was that we are working with a program called Sparrow. It's a company it's a new company out of Ottawa, and it's funded by CMHC. It's a pilot project. I've been working with CMHC for the past year and a half, and they recommended that I reach out to Sparrow. And the CEO is really wonderful, very approachable and adaptable, and has tailored a solution for us that's amazing. So I would absolutely recommend that as you move forward, that would be something that you consider. So we had an open house last week in Naw where residents could come in and ask their questions. We had everything from, essentially in Naw, it's a small municipality. We're not going to build a bunch of affordable housing. That's not really a reasonable solution. So we had to do something that was more modular. So we're focusing on private landowners, and there's obviously a lot of seniors who live alone in a big house with lots of rooms, and they don't want to be a landlord for obvious reasons, that we can all understand. and maybe don't want to get into the business of that, but maybe they have needs that could be met, like someone that helps care for the yard in exchange for rent, or just helps like in NOS particularly, there are people who have animals and like, have a lot of property and it becomes unwieldy. So having a young family move into an accessory dwelling on the property is ideal. So essentially Sparrow identifies homeowners that have there's existing rentals out there that are there, and they address all of the pain points. So, a common question that comes up is, well, I don't know, like, what if the person isn't a good fit for my lifestyle? Well, Sparrow does extensive background checks. They do interviews with all the candidates, and they match people really holistically. So we had an open house last week. We have 5 people signed up, homeowners signed up. We have a couple people who are like tentatively matched. They're getting to know each other. And I'll just give you an example of like how this could really work. There's a couple who lives on a farm who are living on a fixed income. They've spent their entire lives, growing vegetables and, having honey from their bees and really just getting by on a really, shoestring income. Well, now with all the costs, the inflationary costs of living, they just can't make ends meet. They have an accessory dwelling, on their farm property. And they are very religious, okay? Just as an example, that's something about their lifestyle that's really important. They don't want just anybody living with them. They want someone who's like a lifestyle match. So, we have a pool of applicants who are looking for housing, and there's a middle-aged woman who has experience as a PSW, has experience taking care of homes, has experience as a cleaner, who is living in a rental. She's lived there 18 years, and now they're kicking her out because they're selling the house. And there's nowhere, like for the price that she's been living there, there's just nowhere for her to live. So she will actually be homeless, even though this is a woman who works 40 hours a week. And she's just getting older and older. So, and she's very religious and has very strict ideas about how she wants to live her life. Well, these people are a perfect match to live together, to help each other out, and just to make a situation that's working for everyone. And that didn't require building affordable housing. That was just a mediated solution. And for North Algona Wilberforce Township, we don't want to be in the business of pairing people or causing issues or getting into liability. So this company does all that. They work with the clients to negotiate the contract between them. They sign the contract, and it's short term. It's not covered by the landlord and tenant board, but it's better than Airbnb because it's a self-created contract. And it's short term. So say they decide to do it for 4 months. If it works out, they can become a tenant. So it's a good trial period that is mediated by this company. And so I've had people call saying like, well, I tried renting, and it was this guy, and he had all these pets, and he, didn't respect our property, and he destroyed the house or whatever. This company mitigates the risk. So it's like providing a solution for people where they're all we're doing is, reducing their risk. Getting into this. And the thing is, there's a lot of people, like I know a lot of people in Pembroke who are families with 3 kids, and there's nowhere you can rent. Like you could maybe afford a 1-bedroom, but you're not going to afford a home that you can accommodate your family, and even working full time. And it's getting worse and worse. So absolutely something needs to be done. Yeah, so I guess that's the short-term solution that I'm going to recommend you just like adopt, is working with Sparrow. And then a medium-term solution that we're working on in NAW, but I don't know if it is a good fit for Pembroke, but maybe this is something you guys can talk about, is we are applying for the Rapid Housing Initiative with CMHC, where, again, the township is not in the business of being a landlord or managing housing or any such thing. So we are identifying people in the community who say you have a farm property that's 100 acres, and you would like to build. You're getting older. You'd like to build a little house that's wheelchair accessible, because we conducted a housing survey where we identified that 67.7% of our residents are afraid that they can't age in their home, and they don't know where they're going to go. So it's a major problem that's growing. So essentially, if they wanted to build a little accessory dwelling, so say like a 2-bedroom home that's all on one level, but they can't afford to do it right now unless they sold their farm, and then that would, there's issues there. They're never going to sell their farm, or or there's nowhere else that they could even purchase at that point. So they can apply with this rapid housing initiative, and we actually have probably 12 interested parties, and then when we actually submit the application to CMHC, it's going to be like 4 or something that have met all the requirements, because there's a lot of work involved in building on your property. But essentially, they could build this little unit. They have to promise the Ontario government that it's going to be below market rate affordable housing for 20 years, and then they rent it out, and then they move into it when they're 75, and then their kids take over the farm. So for a lot of people, this is something that's part of their intergenerational planning that they wanted to do anyway, and they just couldn't because they couldn't afford it. But CMHC will kick in some of the funding. So we're identifying people like that. It's easy, they are private investors who are already interested, and it's on the Ontario government to do the follow through. And then as a long-term project that we're working on together with the Alliance, is that we're hoping, there's a May intake. So we're working towards putting together a proposal with all the local municipalities. Pembroke does have a committee, and it would be great if Pembroke wanted to join in. So our long-term project that we're working on is applying for this rural innovation housing pilot, because we have different issues here than they do in the city. We have a lack of services. Like in Naw, I know Pembroke is suffering because Pembroke is taking on so much from the local municipalities, because I know in Naw we have no women's shelters. We have no, there's barely enough, at the food bank to serve the people who are there. It's very limited. And so I know that Pembroke is taking on some of that. And so we would like to apply for a project coordinator to work with each municipality to identify potential strengths. So Pembroke obviously is a bit of a different situation. I could see Pembroke working with employers, because that's something. I used to work for the labor market group here, and the employers were saying that there's nowhere to live. There's just a lack of any kind of housing. That was before affordability became such a big factor. But anyway, I'm hoping, that Pembroke will also engage with us on that longer term project, which is going to be, maybe a year-long project, where we identify opportunities in all the communities, and then we have the support of the project coordinator to actually build the application for building the housing or renovating existing housing, or just working with whatever each municipality decides is the best solution. I think I've pretty much covered it. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Cameron. Interesting. I've sat in on some of your meetings, so I'm a little more familiar than some other councillors. So I'm going to open it up to questions. Questions? Councillor Purcell?
Thank you for your presentation today. The Rapid Housing Initiative, I know that, I sit on the County Health Committee. We have a lot of paramedic services providing, BTAC through BTAC services to our elderly, trying to keep them in their homes, and there's actually no room in some of our long-term care facilities as well. So I can see how this Sparrow program and also the Rapid Housing Initiative through CMHC would be very beneficial to a lot of people that want to remain in their homes but can't afford to. And I think, it pays in the long run, also because you're also keeping people out of hospital or long-term care, which is very, very expensive. I hear you. This is kind of something that's near and dear to my heart in regards to making sure that we have affordable services and supports for people, and especially housing and healthcare. I appreciate your presentation today. It's more just a comment than anything. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I personally want to thank Cameron and Ish for spearheading the meeting last May that I attended with my wife, and here we are today, and you're presenting to our council and starting a conversation on affordable housing that everybody knows is so important to the area. We have a local committee that Cameron and I are spearheading, a group of volunteers. Councillor Frenier is on the committee. We're meeting next Monday on Zoom. If anybody wants to join, contact myself or Cameron. Just a note here, you talk about the Lanark Renfrew Labour Market Working Group that you worked with, Cameron. Jamie Bramberger of Algonquin College had an article in the paper last week. 50 local employers in the county, in Lanark County, were surveyed, and some of the factors that were impacting the ability to attract workers was the rising cost of living, lack of affordable housing, and absence of public transit, and difficulty in attracting immigrants to smaller areas. So these are deterrents to a community when you want to attract jobs and build. So it's really important that the city has initiatives to spur and work with the partnership. And Councillor Jacquino sits on the Housing Authority and the Social Service Committee, and the county has attended our meetings, and they're fully supportive. So it's all about partnerships. So we're here tonight to get the conversation started and go from there. Cameron and I were talking before the meeting with Ish. We mentioned this at the meeting last week, or 3 weeks ago. Councillor Friendly mentioned it. The Sparrow share, I know staff will have to come back with a report and look at it, but it's sort of similar to the Snow Angels Canada program that the city advertises. It's a free website, and it's between the homeowner and the person that wants to volunteer to shovel. But it's the same sort of concept, but it's more in depth though. But it's the same sort of idea. The city would not be involved directly with it, but they could advertise it and promote it if they support it. So that's just another example. And I think the key word here is innovation. You know, we have the Sparrow Share. You talked about the rapid housing, where the family would move into a separate dwelling when they got older. And so innovation is the key. So anything that local governments can do, public-private partnership. Because the county, I've been told, the county told me that the government really isn't interested in building more social housing. They want public-private partnership. This is what Bill 23 is about also. So it's a very good start, and thank you again.
Councillor Jacquino?
Thank you for your very informative presentation. I had the opportunity about a month ago to watch a program on TV Ontario where two mayors sort of were exchanging ideas and visiting each other. Mayor Pat Brown of Brampton visited the mayor of Oshawa to see what their common interests were and what the common problems were. And they were dealing with homelessness and housing as well, what you're talking about. And Dan Carter, who's the mayor of Oshawa, came from some pretty hard times himself. So he understands, how people are suffering, are looking for housing, etc. And they had developed a program where they built these homes out of containers. And you take a steel container and you say it's a chunk of steel. But when they showed what the accommodation was, it was phenomenal. It was for one person. It had a washroom and a kitchenette and a place to sleep. I mean, I'd stay there if I was a single person. It really was quite accommodating. But as was discussed earlier, this isn't just a problem municipally or provincially. It's right across the country. And I think the federal and the provincial government have to step forward a little bit. They throw everything back at us as the small municipalities. We have to run a balanced budget, and they can just continue to print money at a deficit. So where's the justice? There's got to be some funding coming forward. And as Deputy Mayor had mentioned earlier, the social housing is not the solution. But what is affordable housing? What is that? I mean, that's the question. We have a developer that wants to develop a couple thousand units here, and I keep saying to him, can you develop affordable housing? And he says, well, what do you define as affordable? Affordable to who? Affordable to the developer, affordable to the person that's living there. So that's where you got to come up with the affordability factor. What is that? What could the average person, as Cameron said, with 2 or 3 children struggling to find a place, what is that number and who determines it? I don't think it's a municipality. It'd have to be determined by groups such as your own that are working so diligently to come together. But what is that number? I mean, if you want to talk to the government and you're moving forward and you have all these these plans to say, look, we're going to work in our community to develop affordable housing, they're going to say, well, what is affordable housing? What do you define as affordable housing? I think you have to give them something to go on, or otherwise, I think you're going to be spinning your wheels. But I appreciate what you're saying. I think what you brought forward here, and if you get the chance to see that program on TV Ontario between the two mayors, and I don't know if you have, it'll really open your eyes to, we're facing those same issues right here as they are in Brampton and Oshawa and all across the province. It's very eye-opening. If you get a chance, please take a look. Thank you for coming.
If council will indulge, I'd like to speak from the chair. Okay. So thank you very much. I was excited when I heard about the Sparrow program that evening when we were on our Zoom meeting. I guess my recommendation from this meeting, as well as the previous meetings I've attended, is that we do take into consideration, and I'm looking at Colleen Sorio back there, the promotion of the Sparrow program throughout the city. I see so many benefits. Aging individuals who maybe do have a couple of extra bedrooms and a full basement that they're not using, maybe they could get a student or a young couple that's compatible to share their home. I think it's a win-win situation. They get help around the house, and maybe the young couple can live there quite a while. So I want to say I would love staff to investigate that and promoting it like we do the Snow Angel program. So it's really a hands-off thing, but it's a way of letting our residents know how they can live more affordable by sharing their present home. I also love the Rapid Housing Initiative, so I would love for staff to investigate that and promote that as well, and tell people that there's these funding opportunities for them to build on their own property. The tax class for affordable housing. We did have a reduced tax class recently for developers that were developing a certain amount of apartments. We had a reduced tax class. And maybe we can investigate this. But I do agree with Councillor Jackno, what's affordable? Because I know right now when developers say so many units are going to be affordable, it doesn't have to be, as you said, no more than 30% of their income. It only has to be so much below market. Well, we all know the market value right now is quite high. So anyway, I would like the staff to investigate how we can work with these initiatives to promote them within our community, and that would be our first step. So I'm just seeing some heads nod around, so that's my comment. Deputy Mayor, one more comment?
Well, the affordability, according to Bill 23, I was reading it, is 20% below market rate. That's affordability. If the developer signs a deal with CMHC, they have 30% of your gross income. I'm going to be bringing a notice of motion forward regarding affordable housing at the end of the night. But yeah, that's 30% of the income is CMHC.
Okay, so any more questions, comments? Mr. Tyhammer?
Yes, if I could just respond briefly to Councillor Jackano, a couple of points that you made. It can't just come from governments. Support for affordable housing financing cannot just come from governments. There are sources of loyal local capital, and we have to tap the local capital for that. We have to form partnerships, as Deputy Mayor was talking about, public-private partnerships. We have to find a number of sources for financing. As for affordability, I just have a little story to tell. A number of you would know Darrell O'Shaughnessy from Arnprior, who's involved with the Arnprior Senior Citizens Council, and he told me a story about how one of the local churches has offered land for affordable housing, and Darrell, pulled together about 10 area developers and investors and said, look, we've got an hour, we've got a piece of land that's been offered, you guys come up with the plan for housing that cost about $1,000 a month. And they did, and they're working on it. That's the spirit I think we need to work in.
Could I
Well, yeah, one more comment?
Yeah, so I just wanted to say, Troy Purcell, you brought up a really good comment about seniors that you've encountered who, it's like, they're just waiting for somebody to save them and somebody to fix the situation, and no one is coming unless it's us, right? And they're going to rent their rooms anyway, because that's what's going to happen. They're going to get to a point where that's the only capital they have is the house that they've paid off. And then they're going to get themselves into trouble, and they're going to get themselves into senior abuse if they don't have something set up. That's what's like really great about the Sparrow program, is that they do all the background checks. They ensure that it's a good match, that the lifestyle matches up, that it's going to work. You know, sometimes you get a renter and anyway, any number of things can happen. So it really is like I have such peace of mind talking to people on the phone on our open house who are like, there's a lot of people thinking about this. There's a lot of people who need this. So it's an easy way, like as you said, it's like the Snow Angels program. It doesn't cost the city any money. It's all it is just the city saying, look, we've investigated this company. It's a CMHC funded pilot project. It's a legitimate company, and they're going to do their darndest to set you up, write a contract, do everything that they can to help you do the best that you can in this difficult situation. So
Okay,
Yeah.
well, thank you very much. I think I saw Colleen taking some notes, so hopefully we'll have a report come back of some type. And I want to thank you, Cameron and Ish, for joining us tonight, and have a good evening. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for joining.
Hello. So next on our agenda, CIP request 157 Pembroke Street West.
Thank you, Chair. The Community Improvement Panel recommends that $8,742 is granted to Ivan Gunter, owner of 157 Pembroke Street West, for the Community Improvement Plan Downtown Heritage Facade Improvement Grant, the Accessibility Grant, and Planning and Building Permit Fee Grant, with the caveat that the grants cannot be issued until the outstanding taxes are paid in full. A resolution will be before Council at its meeting on February 21st, 2023. On February 3rd, 2023, the Community Improvement Panel met. A completed application from Ivan Gunter, owner of 157 Pembroke Street West, was received. The application is for the Downtown Heritage Facade Improvement Grant, the Accessibility Grant, and the Planning and Building Permit Fee Grant. A report was presented to the committee by Angela Seabarth, Economic Development Officer. The Downtown Heritage Facade Improvement Grant applies to properties within the Pembroke Business Improvement Area boundaries. It is intended for the improvement to front or exterior facades that front onto a public street for commercial, mixed use, or industrial properties. This grant is intended to encourage aesthetic improvements to buildings and properties and support continued maintenance and upkeep of the building stock with a heritage design element. The accessibility grant is intended to improve the accessibility to existing buildings in accordance with the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act. Eligible costs include the installation of new automatic doors, wheelchair access ramps, widening of doorways, and/or leveling and repairing a pathway. The Planning and Building Permit Fee Grant is intended for the development or redevelopment of a property for commercial, office, or a mix of uses. Generally, any projects which are eligible for other incentives in the plan are also eligible for the Planning and Building Permit Fee Grant if the applicant is required to obtain planning approvals and/or a building permit. According to the Community Improvement Plan requirements, there are to be no outstanding work orders and taxes against the property. According to the Fire Department, there are no orders on file for this property. The Treasury Department does have concerns, though, regarding outstanding taxes. However, a plan was worked out with Mr. Gunter at the Community Improvement Panel meeting for him to pay the taxes before any grants are issued. There is one building permit open with the Building Department, but it is not of any concern. The applicant has provided 2 quotes for all work being completed. According to the low quotes provided to the Community Improvement Panel, $20,450 plus HST will be spent on the facade improvements at 157 Pembroke Street West. Based on the Downtown Heritage Facade Improvement Grant guidelines, 50% of the work can be reimbursed up to a maximum of $5,000. Therefore, this applicant is eligible for $5,000 under the Downtown Heritage Facade Improvement Grant. According to the low quote provided to the Community Improvement Panel, $7,650 plus HST will be spent on the accessibility improvements at 157 Pembroke Street West. Based on the accessibility grant guidelines, 50% of the work can be reimbursed up to a maximum of $2,500. Therefore, this applicant is eligible for $2,500 under the accessibility grant. Under the Planning and Building Permit Fee Grant, the total fees can be reimbursed as they relate to the other work being applied for. Therefore, this applicant is eligible for $1,242 under the Planning and Building Permit Fee Grant. In total, this applicant will be eligible for $8,742 under the Community Improvement Plan. For the regular CIP grants, $110,000 is in the 2023 budget. $0 has been paid so far this year, and $50,832.09 is committed.
Thank you, Angela. Councillor Keel?
Thank you, Chair. So let me begin my comments by saying that, in my opinion, the CIB program is one of the best programs that the City of Pembroke has come out with recently. I know it came up at our economic development meeting where the mayor made the statement, and I share in his statement that I would even like to see if there's other avenues that we can go down with this program. What I don't like is that someone who doesn't meet the eligibility requirements has successfully submitted an application. It's been heard by the CIP committee. It's now coming before this committee where we have to look at it here, and then we're going to do this all again in a couple hours during council meeting. I realize that the request is to have a caveat that the grant not be paid until he's up to date in his taxes, but I am moving a motion that this matter be remitted back to the CIP committee until such time as it's actually ready for us. It's an eligibility requirement. You have to be eligible to apply. He's not even eligible at the moment, and we're already pre-approving him. So I move that we send this back to the committee until such time as he meets the eligibility requirements, and on that basis, I wouldn't approve it at this time.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table to return this item back to the CIP committee until such time his arrears are taken care of and he qualifies, correct?
Yes, it would remain
Yes.
an active application, just sent back until.
Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Jackno. Further comments? Sorry, the mayor and then Councillor Jackno.
Thank you. So I'm the council appointee to this particular committee. Mr. Gunter has done a number of great projects in our downtown and certainly has moved our downtown forward. Mr. Gunter, without getting into specifics, which he was quite happy to discuss specifics, but frankly, as I indicated at that particular meeting, as council members, we're not entitled to know what specifically is going on with a particular taxpayer as to what any of us are paying in terms of the amount of taxes, the frequency in which we pay our taxes, or any of that particular information. However, and he was happy to oblige and to discuss what his situation was, which was, like many, is he came through the COVID situation. In many instances, from what I can gather, he essentially floated certain tenants that he had that we would have otherwise lost in our downtown. But as a landlord, he ensured that those tenants are alive and are businesses that are in place still because of his doing. However, in saying that, there are some arrears of taxes which he did discuss with the committee in terms of what the plan was to rectify it. And so the committee then decided with a unanimous vote to approve and recommend to this particular committee that the applications go forward with the caveat that, so you're approved, but you need to pay the taxes, and perhaps Mrs. Zebarth knows better in terms of the frequency. I don't recall, but it was, as I recall it, a short order such that it would not take long for him to get the taxes paid up to date. But that's the rationale of the panel was let's move it forward so that we get him in the works so that he does do the work and so forth. But the caveat being that you're not going to see the funds until such time as you, within the time frame that you've specified, you pay the particular taxes. Because it was, I will say, in terms of the panel, a very strong concern because, as I understand it, not that I've ever sat on the CIP before, but that not only is it a requirement, but that there would be no precedent set that we would provide the grant without the complete taxes being paid.
Councillor Jacno?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just, maybe we're opening up a can of worms. If the direction says your application has to ensure that you're not behind in taxes, even though we understand Mr. Gunter's, great belief in the city of Pembroke with the various projects, I just think it may send a message to other people that are applying, saying, you know what, you don't have to pay your taxes, just apply. The city may be able to give you the money, long as we pay them back later. So, which is it? I'll have a hard time with this one on voting, but I'm just saying, I have a tendency to agree if we set out the parameters that, you're not meeting the requirement, even though there is a caveat saying that you will pay shortly. I have some difficulty with that.
Councillor Abdallah?
I agree with the mayor's comments. Mr. Gunter has invested time, energy, vision into that block downtown, developer, landlord, extenuating circumstances. You look at these on a case-by-case basis. Mr. Gunter came to council a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, with his plan for the apartments that he was building. And it's a very exceptional plan, and to add more units to the rental stock at downtown core, which are needed. As the mayor pointed out, COVID was not kind to anybody. We want to encourage development. It says right in the report that once the taxes are paid, the money will be dispersed, not before. Turning this down, sending it back, that's just creating more paperwork, more time. I don't agree with that. So I will be I will be voting against this motion.
Follow up, Councillor Keel?
So I disagree with the deputy mayor. In fact, what we're doing right now potentially creates more paperwork and more time. And doing it on a case-by-case basis, I think, is one of the worst things that we could do, because everyone is going to have a story. I have nothing against Mr. Gunter. I fully support, in the end, him getting this money. It's just he doesn't have his act together yet. And everyone has a story. Everyone has reasons. I would imagine the tax department, on probably more than half of their tax arrears, the person has a story. There's probably a few people that look at them and say, yeah, I just didn't feel like paying them. So what we're setting up here is an entire process going all the way down the road and telling other people who have tax arrears who don't meet other eligibility criteria that we'll walk all the way down the road with you before we finalize things. So what it says to people is you don't have to pay your taxes, and if you want one of these grants, instead of paying your taxes first and then applying for a grant, you could apply to us, see if you get the grant, and then if you get the grant, decide to pay your taxes. And if you don't get the grant, maybe you won't continue to pay your taxes. It sets a horrible precedent in terms of us allowing them to flaunt the eligibility requirements. Your comment that we do this on a case by case, I honestly think that is the worst thing that we could possibly do is forgive things on a case by case basis. If this was a tender, and we flaunted the rules to give money to one person and not to another person, the city of Pembroke could actually be sued for violating the contract tender. So I have a significant problem with the idea that we're going to let people flaunt the rules, see if they get the grant. We're not really doing anything except setting the precedent and I hope this is the precedent, if this motion passes, I hope this is what the precedent is that the CIP program simply does not send it to us, so that there isn't this back and forth ever again, that the CIP committee goes, okay, council doesn't want to see anything until we have a fully committed eligibility requirement. So I disagree that it's creating back and forth. If we go through with this, then, I mean, there's going to be more back and forth between our staff and the person following up to see if the taxes have actually been paid, whether or not we will ever know or get any follow-up, whether the condition has been met or not. And then we're also committing money, $8,742. We're committing to money that might not end up getting used. And I'm not saying, I'm talking generally. I'm certainly not talking about Mr. Gunter, but we could be holding up $8,700 that doesn't get used this year, and we could end up with other applicants who don't get a share of the pie, because if we have a really big year and all the grant money's gone, we might say no to somebody who meets all the requirements because we're holding on to money for someone that has yet to meet the requirements. So I love this program. I will be more than happy to support it when Mr. Gunter has his taxes paid up. I just really dislike the precedent that we as a council, not Mr. Gunter, that we as a council are setting when we do this.
Final comment, Deputy Mayor?
I have a question for Ms. Seabarth and then a comment. Is this the first application to the committee of this nature where someone's applied, they have a track record with the city, a good one, and they owe taxes, and so we approve it, and then once its taxes are paid, he gets the money? Is this the first incident?
Having just been in the position since last July, I can't comment on on that.
You did have another comment, though, Angela?
I do.
Okay.
I would say, though, that Mr. Gunter has applied in the past for community improvement grants, and he has been successful in providing all of the up to date, paying his. Providing us with paid invoices for the work done and all of that, so the grants have been issued to him, and there have been no issues in the past as far as that's concerned. So he has received grants in the past from the community improvement plan, and that's been a good relationship.
So, as I said, so are we done? Sorry about that.
Another thing is that there was a plan among the CIP committee. When we sat down, there was a plan worked out within 2 to 3 months that he explained a plan to pay the outstanding taxes.
Final comment, Deputy Mayor?
So we need to work with these developers and apartment builders and business people to have them stay in our community. As Ms. Seabarth has stated, he has a proven track record. He's been successful with the CIP program before. He's got a plan to pay the taxes, and denying it tonight, he'd just be coming back to the table again. So yeah, I'm looking at it as a case-by-case situation. Probably the first one that's come to the CIP committee with a tax balance, but like I said, COVID was hard on everyone. So that's my reasoning.
No further comments? So I guess we'll call the question.
Request point of order, recorded vote, and read the motion again.
So I'm going to make a comment from the chair, if that's okay. So I know Mr. Gunter, and I know he's a responsible businessman, great for our city, promoting it, et cetera, et cetera. However, I do hear Councillor Keel's point that we're not following our own criteria. It's wasting. Let's say this individual was not intending on paying his taxes, depending on whether he got the grant or not. Well, then we're taking committee time, staff time, to prepare the reports, to review his application, and nothing may ever come. So I hear Councillor Keel, and it's nothing personal, but I think that in this case, we do have to follow our own procedures, unless we're going to amend them to have something, a plan must be in place to pay your arrears, and in writing, signed off, because I do believe, or we could be dancing around the table, with nothing ever proceeding. So those are my comments. So I will be supporting this motion, and it's nothing personal. So would you like to call the vote, the recorded votes?
Yeah, so I'll just read the motion as I believe. So the application for 157 Pembroke Street West be pushed back to the CIP until the taxes are paid in full. Okay, and then recorded vote, Deputy Mayor,
Nay.
Councillor Jacquino,
Yes.
Councillor Keel,
Yay.
Councillor Frenier,
Yay.
Councillor Plummer is absent, Councillor Purcell,
Yay.
and Mayor Gervais.
Nay.
So the yeas have it 4-2. The motion is carried.
Okay, next item, CIP request 141 Lake Street. Angela?
The Community Improvement Panel recommends that $2,935 is granted to Mark Sterling, owner of 141 Lake Street, for the Community Improvement Plan Accessibility Grant and Planning and Building Permit Fee Grant, with the caveat that the grant cannot be issued until an update is given to the Planning and Building Department about the open building permit. A resolution will be before Council at its meeting on February 21st, 2023. On February 3rd, 2023, the Community Improvement Panel met. A completed application from Mark Sterling, owner of 141 Lake Street, was reviewed. The application is for the Accessibility Grant and the Planning and Building Permit Fee Grant. A report was presented to the committee by myself, Angela Seabarth, Economic Development Officer. The accessibility grant is intended to improve the accessibility to existing buildings in accordance with the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act. Eligible costs include the installation of new automatic doors, wheelchair access ramps, widening of doorways and/or leveling and repairing a pathway. The Planning and Building Permit Fee Grant is intended for the development or redevelopment of a property for commercial, office, or a mix of uses. Generally, any projects which are eligible for other incentives in the plan are also eligible for the Planning and Building Permit Fee Grant if the applicant is required to obtain planning approvals and/or a building permit. According to the Community Improvement Plan requirements, there are to be no outstanding work orders and taxes against the property. According to the Fire Department, there are no orders on file for this property. The Treasury Department does not have concerns regarding outstanding taxes. There are 2 building permits open with the Building Department. They have no concerns with one of the building permits, but they would need an update on the other building permit prior to any monies being granted.
Comments? Councillor Keel?
Well, I think I know where I'm going with this one. Do we have information on what this building permit, the outstanding one, have we received an update yet, or is this still an outstanding eligibility requirement as of today?
So I spoke with Mark Sterling about this, and the FreeCon was to reply to him about the building permit, the status of it. He was in touch. He's been the FreeCon has been the company that's been in touch with the Planning and Building Department about this. So I haven't received an update, but I anticipate receiving an update from Mark.
Then I'm going to move that we remit this one back to the CIP committee until such time that all eligibility requirements are met.
Any further comments? Are you putting forth a motion again? Okay, so motion on the floor, similar to the last, seconded by Councillor Jackno. Further comments? Seeing no comments, all in favor? Opposed? Okay, so that one will also go back to committee. So I
Okay.
see a trend here, so I guess we're going to have to start following criteria a little closer just to save some work. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Angela.
Thank you.
I'm going to call up Mr. DeRoche from the Parks and Recreation. Next item is a Pembroke Marina rate review. I'll let you take it, Jordan.
All right, thank you and good evening. The recommendation for this report is that Parks and Recreation Committee approve number 1, staff recommendations to adjust bylaw 2022-43 Schedule D recreation and facility fees, marina rates of 6.4%, commencing for the 2023 season by factors as established in this report. And number 2, bylaw 2022-43 Schedule D recreation and facility fees, marina rates be adjusted automatically on a yearly basis and in line with consumer price index rates established by the Treasury Department. In 2022, the Parks and Recreation Department proposed new marina rates that were changed and approved by Council. Previous to this, the rates were changed back in 2017. So the department is once again looking at rates, and what we're trying to achieve here essentially is consistency on a yearly basis. And what we're looking at doing is staying in line with the CPI, as well as looking at averages based on our neighboring marinas. And essentially the end result here is to alleviate some of the gaps that we do create by not looking at our fees over, say, a 5-year period. The department compared itself to 3 comparators that have similar core services as the City of Pembroke. Historically, the city has only compared themselves to 2. And something that I did want to just bring up with council as well is just some of the stats that we had from our seasonal slip holders from 2022. We had 49% of city of resident users, 30% of LV users, and we had 21% which were others. So we do have 105 seasonal slips down at the marina, and they were rented to capacity in 2022. As far as our financial implications go, we are looking at increasing the fees that obviously will provide additional revenue support to offset the increasing expenses. Thank you.
Comments or questions? Councillor Keel.
Fully in favor of the increases, particularly matching the CPI increase. The only comment that I would make is I think we probably should, and this is a general comment, so don't look too scared, Jordan. I think in terms of our fees bylaw, at some point we as a council, I think, should swing around and look at the entire bylaw to include some automatic CPI increases. For example, a lot of government fees, I know the mayor would know the court fees or whatnot. What they do is the fee is set every year and then they round to the nearest dollar, the nearest $5 or whatever it is. So then you only really need intervention when you feel as though the things are getting out of whack compared to the CPI. So it would still unfortunately require Jordan to keep an eye on our neighbors and that to make sure we're not going out of whack. But it would at least stop us from having to review things so frequently. So not so much a comment for this exact matter, but just throwing it out there that maybe the staff and Mr. Unruh could possibly take a look at how we could word our overall fees bylaw. Thank you.
Jordan, do you want to comment in regards to conversations we had about rate increases and tying it in with the budget as well?
Sure, yeah. So I guess one thing that I would like to comment is just kind of just in my experience of looking at rate fees and whatnot, once you kind of get to that average mean, is to try and keep an eye on it, exactly what you were saying, Councillor Keel, and use that kind of 20% kind of give or take either way, just to make sure that you're staying in line, and if we do use the CPI index as we move forward type of thing. I will say that some of our rates do have to still be looked at. Some have been brought forward in the past to make sure that they're in line with CPI. but we still have a little bit of work to do as well. So I think that overall, we should probably be looking at it to make sure, before budget comes or whatever it is, that we can, justify or take a look at what revenues is projected for that particular year.
Any further questions or comments? Councillor, Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, so Jordan, I recall you and I were, after the last council meeting, you're going to look at doing, your department's going to look at doing a complete rate review of all facilities, like not this year, but maybe next year or so?
Yeah, through the chair. So we will be looking at it this year to bring forward for next year, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Next item, request for space at Krista Johnson Memorial Run for Change. Jordan?
All right, thank you. So the recommendation for this report is that the Parks and Recreation Committee support the use of green space for the Krista Johnson Memorial Run for Change on June 10th and 11th, 2023 at Riverside Park. So the department did receive a formal request from the organizers of the Krista Johnson Memorial Run for Change. So just a little bit of history on this one. So in 2010, Krista Johnson herself did initiate the run. And since then, it has now continued on in her legacy of her life promoting healthy, active lifestyles among youth. And the purpose of this is that the annual fundraising of the run does support the Elevate Youth Wellness Center. So this is a place that offers a fully equipped and supervised fitness studio, also offers yoga, healthy cooking classes, and a girls group called Live It Up. As far as the financial implications go, there are none. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, and then Councillor Jackno.
This is an exceptional program in the memory of Krista Johnson, who gave so much to the youth of Pembroke in programming. And they have an excellent facility, as mentioned in the description, at the Phoenix Center, where the PBA offices are. So I see the youth in there all the time. So I would motion that we accept the recommendation.
We have a motion on the floor. Can we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Keel. Councillor Jackno?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through to Mr. DeRushy, very commendable event as well. My concern is the route. Is it crossing traffic, 17? Do we have any issues?
Thank you. Through the chair, I'm not aware that it crosses anywhere in particular. I know that it does have a looping effect. There are different routes itself. I would have to look at that and get back to you.
If I may, I thought previously they had crossed at where the snowmobile crossing is now at Trafalgar Road, and I think there was a OPP there. I just thought there was traffic was being held up. I'm just wondering if that's part of the route again where they went up. You can get back to me. Thank you.
Councillor Keel?
Okay, I'll interject on that one quickly and then get to my main comments. There was a map somewhere in some, I'm just not sure which package of materials that we had, but I'm sure I saw a map somewhere for this. My comment, so Mrs. Johnson was actually a science teacher of mine in high school, a tremendously caring and energetic person, who certainly at that time had a great passion for teaching. And I'm not sucking up because she doesn't mark anything of mine anymore. But for her to, what I do want to say is to commend her and this organization for carrying on. I can't even begin to imagine what losing a child would be like, and to take something so tragic and turn it in to the good that this organization is doing. I think supporting this, particularly when there's little to no cost consequences for the city, is the very least that we could do. And I couldn't support this tonight anymore. And I certainly I think the Parks and Rec and operations and all of the city staff that go into to looking at these events and assisting when they can.
So we have a motion, we have a seconder, no further comments. I'll call the question. All in favor? Approved.
Excuse me, Madam Chair. Just a point of order. So in regards to the previous report, in regards to the change in the marina rate,
Yes.
there wasn't any resolution, so I was asking if we could get a resolution on that.
Oh, I'm sorry. So moved by Councillor Keel, seconded by Deputy Mayor. All in favor? I'm sorry, I apologize. Thank you. Next item, Bass Fishing Derby, Greater Petawawa Civitan Club request. Jordan.
Thank you. So the recommendation for this report is that Parks and Recreation Committee approve the request from the Greater Petawawa Civitan Club for the use of space at Centenary Park and any other fees associated for their annual fishing derby on August 12th, 2023. So the local Civitan Club does serve the Petawawa and Pembroke area, and they're actually looking to plan their annual bass fishing tournament that will be taking place on August 12th. And that is down at Centenary Park, which is, of course, located right in the heart of the waterfront. So this event has been a very successful fundraiser for different community initiatives, and if you do take a look on their website, you can see a long laundry list of things that they do support. But a couple things that I did put in the report here were local hospitals, food banks, Special Olympics, and of course many other causes. So in addition to this year's fishing tournament, they are looking at doing something a little bit different, and they're looking at co-hosting a children's bingo on the same day to support children's mental health. So it's kind of neat that they're trying to take advantage of two events in one. If council does support this, we will discuss the logistics a little bit further with them. I know in the past there hasn't been a whole lot, maybe a couple extra garbage cans, a few picnic tables, but really they're not much of a burden by any means. When we take a look at the financial implications, so a daily launch pass, based on the time that I wrote this report, was $7.25 per boat. The Civitan Club does estimate that approximately 40-50 fishing boats will be there for the tournament. So obviously this does translate into a fee waiver of between $290 to $362.50. Thank you.
So I have Deputy Mayor, and then I have Councillor Keel.
So every year I go down and see some of my friends that are bass fishermen, and they can fish a lot better than I can. But it's just amazing to see the crowds down there and the presentation. And the addition of the bingo is a fabulous idea to support mental health. Another destination event at the green space down there where the Arboretum is. And I know one year the funds went to Care For and healthcare, as it does every year. So make a motion to support the recommendation from the Parks and Rec Committee.
So we have a motion on the floor, seconded by Councillor Purcell. Next comment, Councillor Keel.
I'm just going to piggyback on the comments of the deputy mayor. I do think this is an event that attracts people. You know, we might be losing 40 to 50 launch passes, but at the same time, I can only imagine the dollar value that this is going to mean for the PBIA and other people coming into our town and taking advantage of our local economy. I would imagine that if we did a full economic report, it probably wouldn't even be a balancing act. It would probably be a complete landslide for the city of Pembroke.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a seconder. I'll call the question. All in favor? Approved. Renfrew County 55+ Senior Games sponsorship request. Jordan.
All right, thank you. So the recommendation for this report is that the Parks and Recreation Committee provide direction to staff for support of the Renfrew County 55+ Senior Games. A formal request had come through the department from the organizers of the Renfrew County 55+ Senior Games. So as many of you may be aware, this is an annual activity, an annual event that does take place, and it really is to provide a network to build support and collaboration for social and active opportunities for Ontarians 55+, and ensure seniors are social and active within their communities and beyond. So at this point in time, we haven't received an actual in-kind formal request for any kind of use of facilities. There has been requests in the past. We haven't received any this year. However, if we kind of move on down to the financial implications, the City of Pembroke has committed $500 in the past as a sponsorship to assist the financial support. So should committee move forward with that or approve the $500, the money would be allocated from the community program event support budget. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Motion to approve the $500 for this wonderful event, 55+ seniors, which we want to engage, and I want to thank the volunteers who organize this every year.
So motion on the floor by Deputy Mayor, second by the Mayor. Further discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Approved. Next, a request for addition to the Pembroke and Area Community Center.
All right, thank you. So the recommendation for this report is that the Parks and Recreation Committee support the addition of a covered entryway for the south side entrance of the Pembroke and Area Community Centre, also known as the PACC, through the Pembroke Regional Terry O'Neill Silver Stick Committee. So just before I get into any of the background, I should note that this is a standalone building. I don't want people to think that we're putting like a large building on our Silver Stick is, so it's a shelter for an entryway. The Pembroke Regional Terry O'Neill Silver Stick Committee actively hosts the annual Silver Stick Tournament in the city of Pembroke, usually in the month of November. And one thing that I put in the report here that I really want to showcase here is that this is possibly the best annual sports tourism event within our city. I did ask for some numbers from them for coming to committee here tonight, and they said that through the series of the tournaments, $2 million are directly brought into the community, and it's estimated that between $6 and $8 million has an economic spin-off that occurs annually for this event. So it's definitely really big for our community, and the best thing is that it's putting bums in hotels, people are filling up, they're eating at restaurants and everything. So it certainly is a great event to have within the city. So the Silver Stick Committee has supported several projects over the years at the PACC. Many of you that may have been sitting here around the council table may remember the activity room addition that was put on in the late 90s. There's also been contributions to a new ice resurfacer, new scoreboard, lighting. There's been dressing room upgrades. So they have a whole bunch of initiatives as well that they've supported, and to make sure that they maintain and improve our facility with fundraising dollars. So recently we sat down with them, and they came to us with this proposal, and that they are looking at this standalone structure for the south side entrance at the PACC. So basically what this proposal is really trying to do is it's trying to address congestion. So when there is a tournament on, so it's not just necessarily Silver Stick, could be any minor sports that's taking place, is at the entryway right now, there's a lot of bottlenecking and everything and congestion that takes place at the PACC. By adding this addition on the south side, it would alleviate some of that congestion. It would also allow people for tournament use. I don't know if anyone's been by for Silver Stick weekend or any kind of minor sport weekend, but the parking lot is heavily utilized. So by being able to enter into the facility from the south side would also be pretty nice for the user, not have to walk all the way around the facility and enter into the one side. So it's definitely going to help that way as well, and just make sure that it contributes to easier flow of the actual facility. So the department had to review the plans with not only Silver Stick, but also the city's chief building official. So you'll see in the report here tonight that there is a drawing. And we did support that, or we did present that, to the CBO. And just in taking a look at that, he didn't have any concerns at the given time. He said everything from what he can see at this point does look good. So if council does support this proposal tonight, obviously there will be some things to move forward before we can make sure it happens. I know that CBO had said that there was a letter of authorization, some engineered drawings, as well as a site plan. So all that stuff has to take place as well. But we're certainly looking forward to it. The best part about this, as we take a look at some of the financial implications, is that they're looking at doing this 100%. So this is through fundraising dollars and any kind of in-kind work that they're looking at doing. So there are no impacts on the city itself, other than that we're gaining another entryway. So thank you.
Councillor Keel.
I move that we support this recommendation.
Motion on the floor by Councillor Keel, seconded by Councillor Purcell. Further comments? Deputy Mayor.
Just want to publicly thank Norbert Chaput and the Silver Stick Committee and all the volunteers. This is the same as the Pembroke fiddling and step dancing. That is, that hasn't been going on because of COVID, but we're hoping to get it up going again. And other community supporters, community volunteers, exceptional tournament, economic driver for the city, sports and recreation, and here they are again coming forward with this proposal. So we want to publicly thank them.
So we have a mover, we have a second. I'll call the question. All in favor? It's kind of a no-brainer when someone's going to pay for it. Okay, and finally, request for road closure.
All right, thank you. So the recommendation for this one is that the Parks and Recreation Committee support the following recommendation for the second annual Heroes Run for Healthcare. 1, a road closure on Saturday, May 6th from 7 a.m. till noon, and 2, the use of barricades supplied by the Operations Department to assist in the separation of runner and traffic. So a bit of background on this one is that, of course, we did receive the request from the organizers for this Heroes Run for Healthcare. So you may remember this, formerly known as the Turkey Trot. So this was a fundraiser that has continuously taken on through the community. And of course, they're raising dollars for the Pembroke Regional Hospital. So the event, the Turkey Trot, not only changed their name, but they've also moved from the fall to the spring. So this second annual event will include a 2K as well as a 5K run. The organizers are planning on using the same route as last year. So Councillor Keel, maybe that's perhaps where you saw the route that was in this one, when you were mentioning with the Krista Johnson run. The group obviously is requesting permission to close the Pembroke Street from west here from City Hall to Agnes Street. And of course, that is between the hours of 7 a.m. until approximately noon. So the event will be using OPP officers to help provide traffic control. And they do have a letter of support from the PBIA to utilize the downtown corridor. So the operations department had been consulted on this. They had reviewed the route, and there were no concerns on it at this point in time. And of course, additionally, between the ops department as well as the Parks and Recreation department, we will cooperate and ensure that the delivery of the pickup of the traffic control devices are coordinated with the organizers. And just in terms of the financial implications, the cost for the provision of traffic control devices would be covered underneath the operation and maintenance budget related to shared services. Thank you.
Comments, questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Great. Well, seeing nothing else come forward, I just want to thank Jordan. And I just want to, if I could, from the chair, we've had a lot of discussion at our
Point of order, just, we didn't have anyone move or second that motion?
So I'll motion that we accept the recommendation.
moved by Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Keel. All in favor? Great. So, sorry, thanks. That's twice, 2 strikes, and then I'm out. Does that mean I get to go home early? No. So just a point, we've had a lot of discussions, just so committee's aware, at the recreation level with Jordan, bringing in a lot of good ideas. And we did talk about, waiving fees at our facilities and that type of thing. And sometimes, it's people, individuals and groups will come and ask us to waive different things. We are going to be, not tomorrow, but over the next little while, coming up with some policies in regards to criteria for waiving fees, such as you mentioned tonight. A lot of these organizations were giving back directly to the community. So we want to make sure that, we're being fair, but vigilant with taxpayers' money. So we'll keep you posted about that one. So thank you. I'd ask for a motion to adjourn this meeting. Moved by Councillor Jackno, seconded by Deputy Mayor. All in favor? There, I think I did that right, Dave. Thanks.
Evening, everyone. I'd like to call the Operations Committee to order for February 21st. Are there any disclosure of pecuniary interest this evening? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda. I have the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Keel. Those in favor? That's carried. The minutes of the Operations Committee of January 17th, 2023 was circulated. I have a motion by Councillor Giacono for their adoption, seconded by Councillor Keel. Those in favor? That's carried. Under new business, first up, we have offer to purchase Steel Street unopened road allowance. Welcome, Ms. Sorio.
Good evening. Council and caucus direction was provided in September of 2021 to proceed with the sale of city-owned land to an Ontario Limited company. Our request has been received by Andrew Plummer on behalf of that company to purchase the unopened portion of Steel Street located between Mary and Stewart Streets. They are in the process of purchasing approximately 30,000 square feet on the east side of the unopened portion of Steel Street, and that's shown on parts 3 and parts 4 on that reference plan that's attached. And they're also buying approximately 19,000 square feet on the west side of the unopened portion of land, which is shown as part 1. So they're looking at buying part 5. The proposed development on the east side of Steel Street would consist of 2 6-unit townhouse buildings, and there's no development proposals yet for the west side. So the operations department is in favor of selling this section of Steel Street, but prohibiting access to Mary Street, and this would eliminate any through traffic that would be going between Mary to Stewart. The operations department has also said that there is it's their opinion that the unopened portion of Steel Street can be sold. There is underground infrastructure on Steel Street. However, the infrastructure is in a state of disrepair and could be abandoned, excuse me, which means the city can decommission these services. Servicing to the new development can be off of Mary Street and Stewart Street, and these services would be privately owned by the numbered company. There is an abutting landowner, Consolidated Investments, who owns some of the land west of Steel Street. To ensure that the owner of 360 Steel Street is aware of the proposed sale of the land, it was recommended back in 2021 that the owner of 360 Steel Street provide in writing that they had no issues or concerns with the proposed sale. And this has been done, and a letter has been received from Consolidated Investments indicating they have no issues with the sale as long as they're granted a right-of-way to access their property. A right-of-way is required on the unopened road allowance to ensure that this property owner continues to have access to his proposed residential development. This section of unopened portion of Steel Street from Stewart to Mary, if sold, would be a private driveway, and it would be the applicant's responsibility to maintain this access to the development. The applicant is offered $1,000 for the purchase of the unopened portion of Steel Street. It would be the responsibility of the developer to pay the survey, which he has, and for the legal costs for the transfer of the land and the right-of-way. And the city has in the past sold similar pieces of land for $1,000 plus HST, and there is a bylaw before council this evening.
Comments, Councillor Keel, Councillor French.
What goes into the decommissioning portion of the underground works?
Through the chair, the water main and the sanitary under Steel Street are basically decommissioned now. So it's just a matter of ensuring that the valve is holding and potentially just cutting it off and putting a cap on the water main. Other than that, it has been decommissioned for quite some time.
Estimated cost of that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would say roughly $750, thereabouts.
So, I mean, my general concern here is going to be the same as my concern a few weeks ago, that I can't believe we are selling property to a developer for $1,000. We're getting $1,000. The developer is probably going to be making tens of thousands of dollars on their development. We know developers aren't doing it for free, so I'm sure the developer's not looking for a break even here. So I will not be supporting this, just as I didn't support the last one, but I think we really need to take a serious look. And I know that this comes from a direction from the prior council. I wasn't there, and I don't particularly care today. So I'm going to be opposing this, and I think we need to remind ourselves that when the city does own land, we're holding it in trust for the people of the city, and if it's something that we don't need, if it's something that's that we can get rid of, we should be doing it at a fair market price, and there is no way, not even any remote way, that a fair price for this property of this size is $1,000.
Councillor Fernier?
So I'm going to take this lead from Councillor Keel, because I had it written down before he said it. And I do remember he said it at the last meeting that we were discussing the same thing. And 16 by 120 feet is the size of this strip of land. 16 feet by 120 feet. I think it's feet, not meters. My lot that my house sits on is only 4 times larger. So if this is 25% of the size of my lot, $1,000, I doubt I'd be able to buy my lot for $4,000 as well. So I'm kind of saying that I agree with Councillor Keel. So sorry, if we could let Colleen speak through the chair. It looks like she wants to correct me on something.
Oh, no, I don't want to correct you.
Okay.
But I'd like to add that I think council's decision back in 2021 was the land hadn't been developed in over 30 years, since I've been here, and now I'm dating myself. And the development is being proposed to these vacant lands, and now there is a developer that is coming forth with plans. He's a proven developer, and this development will increase assessment and provide some taxes for the city that we're not getting right now. And I think that was why council felt that this was a good option.
So if I could just, so I'll just finish my thoughts. So I understand the logic behind this, and like, nobody's going to buy that one little strip of land. But I do think 1,000 is a little low. So I am going to ask that we look at it going forward if there's any other pieces of land, because I just think we might as well just give it to them. If it's $1,000, it's almost just a give. So I just would like to see that looked at again and maybe just increased, because Councillor Keel's right. It is development in the city, but they're making money. So, thank you.
Jacqueline?
Thank you, Your Worship. I have sort of it's a double-edged sword. I had said earlier, we should be looking at a pro rata cost of a piece of land. Let's look at it as a square foot. When you buy a piece of carpet or whatever, the flooring, you're buying a square yard or whatever, you know what that price is. So, I mean, if you can't build on the particular property, it's an oddball size, then let's assess it at the assessed value of a piece of property. Let's put it in perspective. What would a lot that is 40 by 50, 200 square, 2,000 square feet, what would that be assessed at? And then let's take 16 by 25 and say, okay, if that's a lot that's selling for that amount, we know this is not a lot. How much is that square foot or square yard worth? Maybe it's worth less than $1,000, I don't know, but I don't think it would be. But that may be a way to assess the value. As Ms. Sorial said, it's been vacant for, I used to walk to school there when the steel equipment was there, when they used to make bombs during the Second World War. There's some history, and they made steel casings, and KI was sort of evolved from that building. It's been just sitting there. And I mean, you've got a forest growing there where there was a building at one time. So let's, with this particular value, assessed value of 1,000, I guess we should go forward to see that we're going to get that extra assessment. But in future, let's make sure we're not giving the ship away. Because as Councillor Fernier said, developers, or Councillor Keel perhaps, they're in business to make money. They're not in business to lose, they're there to make a profit. So should we be giving our valued land away, even though it's landlocked, even though it's a little chunk of property? Let's put a fair market value on it, and fully knowing that, we're not gonna get what you'd get for a standard sized lot. But we can say, well, 1 square yard of that in a building lot, what is a square yard there worth? Let's put that in perspective. So I would be in favor of moving forward to make sure those units, we talked about affordable housing tonight, you know? Who's to say what can come out of it? Thank you.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship. Question for Ms. Soriel. So what is the exact size of the property that we're selling for $1,000? No, Ms. Soriel?
I am trying to read it, but I think it must be, it's got to be at least 40 feet wide. It can't be 16 feet wide. Because it's got to be a driveway, so
right.
they'd have 20 in, 20 out.
So could, if we sold that to somebody else, could they build on it?
Through you, no, they would only be able to build right on Stewart Street because they have to be on an improved public street. So it all depends what type of building they were looking at. It's not very wide.
Right.
So if they wanted to put a house there, they could. But then you're cutting off the access. And this street was closed in 2007 by a bylaw because council felt that there wasn't a need to keep maintaining that section of Steele Street from Mary to Stewart. So it was closed. And there was no appeals at that time when the bylaw closed, when there was a bylaw that closed the road.
Right. So, thank you. So my desire to support this is we have a proven developer who builds rental units, and this property has been vacant, as Ms. Soriel mentioned, for years, and now this will be the first development on this property, and I'm hoping that this will probably spur other development on this property from the company that owns the rest of it, and we do need more housing in Pembroke. And so we need to work with these developers, and you can't build on it separately. So this is an all-encompassing deal, and that's why we decided to sell it for $1,000. So we need to work with these developers, and I'll support looking at prices of this when it comes up again. I'll support that, but it is imperative that we encourage development in the city to increase our tax base and provide housing so people have a place to live when they come to work here. And that's one thing we're dealing with. Thank you.
Councilor Purcell?
Is there any more of these transactions that are currently taking place? Because I think, I do have concerns in regards to the dollar amount for the piece of property. But that being said, I thought that was clear, maybe the last discussion that we had, but I see that there's still more of these types of deals or transactions that have actually coming forward. Is there more transactions to come?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to Councillor Purcell, there's one more that has received direction in principle from council in caucus. And then we can move on to creating a protocol for future land sales.
Can I make a motion then in regards to all future transactions in terms of property? That we get a report from, from staff in regards to the estimated value, recommended value, that would be considered fair and appropriate?
Sure, absolutely. I can provide that, in the coming meetings.
So if I can touch on a few different items then. So the first one is that our PEDTAC committee is currently having staff identify lands, and I'm not talking about the industrial park or McCool Park, but lands in general, that the city of Pembroke has available that it has no issue with disposing of because it would either spur development or that could be developed itself, not like that particular lot, but lots that are developed, and hand in hand with that would be to identify what is the value, because it's been pointed out, and fair enough, previously, that different lands, not every piece of land is the same value, if I can put it that way. And so certain items are allowed to go into closed session because it's about disposition of land. And so hence we're dealing with the ones that have previously underneath the former council have been in the closed session and now are coming forward. But so certainly, so the direction I think is certainly well suited. And yes, that's one of the items that PDTAC PDAC, I guess, is looking at. So that's the first one. The second one, I just want to point out that if you look at the survey, it's dated February 2nd of this year. And so this particular individual saw fit to proceed with the indication in principle that council wanted to proceed with the request to have this particular piece of property sold. And that survey, I have no doubt, having just obtained a survey of my own, is well in excess of $5,000 to obtain that. So that particular developer acted upon what it is that council, not everything that was said in closed session, but certainly I would imagine Ms. Sorio sent some sort of letter saying council is in agreement, proceed on. Okay. The last one, I guess, that I'm curious about, and it's a question for Mr. Lewis, is that whether or not this particular development or this proposed development was going to proceed, would the city have to do anything in particular regarding the infrastructure based upon what you've said about the infrastructure? Is that clear?
The existing water and sanitary underneath Steel Street is in very, very poor condition. We have the water main shut off at present. If this developer doesn't move forward with this, we'll likely have to go in and deal with a water main break or something else with the underground infrastructure. In addition to that, Steel Street was closed with the asphalt surface, the concrete sidewalks and so forth still in place. For this development to move forward, the developer is going to have to remove that. So I would think he's upwards of $5,000 to $7,500 he's going to have to expend to remediate the property to allow him to even start developing. So that would be monies the city would have to put out if we were to do something with it ourselves.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. I guess all I was trying to get at is that whether or not the development is proceeding, it sounds in this particular instance that something's going to happen in any event because of the state of repair. But point well taken from Councillor Keel. So this matter, staff is recommending, and I see that you already have it under bylaws. Are you looking for a motion at this point, or you already have it under a council meeting in any event?
That's correct. So there is a bylaw before council this evening.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Sora. Next item we have, so if we can welcome Mr. Lewis to the table. Welcome, Mr. Lewis. The first matter you have this evening is the 2022 Pollution Control Center Annual Compliance Report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Operations Department recommends that committee accept the Pollution Control Center, PCC, Annual Compliance Report for 2022. There will be a resolution before council later this evening for approval of this report. The legislated date for producing the PCC Annual Compliance Report is March 31st of each calendar year. The attached report covers the period from January 1st, 2022 to December 31st, 2022. This report examines compliance with the city's certificate of approval, in addition to relevant Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks legislation and guidelines, of which there are many. Some of the various acts and guidelines that the wastewater treatment and collection system is subject to are listed in the staff report. The Pollution Control Center was able to meet the E. coli discharge criteria 100% in 2022, as well as all other ministry compliance requirements having been met. During 2022, there were 5 occurrences of planned secondary bypass and 3 occurrences of primary bypass. These were due to heavy rainfall events. Additionally, the primary bypass events included mechanical issues with the headwork screen, which resulted in flow only to the bypass channel. These mechanical issues were being addressed at the time that the heavy rain events happened, which caused the overflow. All the bypasses were remediated, meeting all requirements of the MECP, and the details of that remediation is included in the annual report. There are no financial impacts associated with this report. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You, any questions or comments? This matter will be before council later this evening, but Councillor Keel?
So I just want to, through you, thank thank the director for allowing myself to tour the facility with Councillor Purcell and CAO Unraw. I certainly, I thank you, I thank all your staff. Your supervisor there is an incredibly good tour guide. It left me in awe getting down into, dare I say, the bowels of the city building there. But what I think people need to realize, and I am going somewhere with this other than just thanking you. I don't think all voters, including myself prior to last week, appreciate what goes in to being able to flush a toilet, to being able to run things down the sink. And the reason that I'm talking now is to suggest to you, with the assistance of Mr. Unraw, if it's council's desire, YouTube is a fantastic opportunity for us to share certain things with the public. Obviously, we're not going to run tours. We're not going to run tours of the public through there constantly every weekend. But I really think, having gone on a tour, knowing how good your supervisor is at explaining things, I really think that this council should consider, at whatever minor cost I think it would be, of doing an online tour of our pollution control plant and the water treatment plant. I think people who watch that and our tax-paying base, I think they would be surprised to find out what goes into that to keep all of us safe. And like I said, to allow us to do that simple thing every day of just flushing something down the drain. So I didn't feel the need to bring that up at council or whatnot, plus at council I have to stand when I talk. So I thought I would bring that to you right now. And again, I thank you, I thank Mr. Unraw for allowing me to have that opportunity. And again, just something for council to consider from someone who just, I know some people have been here for a while. As the newcomer, I really do think that the average person would appreciate and might understand where their hard-earned dollars are going in order to do that simple flush.
Purcell?
Just to piggyback on Councillor Keel's points, you know, it's really interesting when you look at some of the stats. We have 108 kilometers of water distribution pipes underground, 533 fire hydrants, 4,052 water service connections, you know, 100 kilometers of sanitary sewer mains with 4,200 service connections, 11 sanitary sewer pumping stations, and 54.6 kilometers of storm sewer mains. You know, that's pretty impressive in terms of the underground infrastructure. And I was really, really impressed in terms of my tour of both facilities, the wastewater and the water treatment facility. And my kudos go out to your team. The building was impeccably kept, meticulous, with such a small staff. You know, their attention to detail, and you know, just the quality of the personnel that you have there is top notch. So please bring that back from Councillor Keel and myself. I appreciate that.
Jackano?
Worship, I think I'm going to be bringing in something about a water increase tonight. So I just want people to keep in mind what has been said here by our two new councillors, how important it is to get a clean drink of water on a daily basis. We take things like that for granted. When many countries, I've been in countries where people are taking a drink out of a pool of water in front of their house and not having a sanitary sewer to go to. So I think people should really consider that. I think it's an excellent idea to show what we have. It's state of the art, and meticulous way they keep the operations of those buildings in order is something that we can congratulate our staff on. We have good people working for us. Thank you.
Okay, next one, Mr. Lewis, 2022 WTP Annual Water Report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Operations Department recommends that the committee accept the City of Pembroke Drinking Water System 2022 Annual Water Reports and that the mayor and the chair of operations sign and approve as indicated. Again, a resolution will come before council later this evening for approval of the report. 3 different annual reports are required for the City of Pembroke drinking water system. They are and include: the first is Schedule 22 Summary Report per Ontario Regulation 170/03 under the Safe Water Drinking Act, which must be prepared no later than February 28th of each year for the preceding calendar year. The report is to be provided to members of council and endorsed by a resolution of council. The second report is Section 11, the annual report, per the same regulation. A copy of the annual report will be made available to all drinking water system owners that are connected to the City of Pembroke drinking water system and to whom the City of Pembroke provides all of its drinking water, and that namely being the Township of Laurentian Valley. The various sections of the report show the city to be in full compliance with the regulations, with all parameters for safe drinking water being met. The third report that's included is the summary of raw water taking and transfer for MECP, and it was submitted in February 2023 under the city's permit to take water per Ontario Reg 387/04. The raw water daily flow volumes are submitted electronically for review by MECP, and a copy of that data submitted is contained within the report. Section 12 of OREG 170/03 requires that these reports be made available for inspection by any member of the public during normal business hours without charge. The report will be made available for inspection at City Hall, on the city's website, and at the water purification plant. There are no financial implications associated with this report. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Purcell?
Just one comment in regards to the transparency of the report. Currently, these reports are not available on our website. Is that something that we can publish on the website going forward?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's difficult to place these particular reports on the website due to the requirement for AODA accessibility, the number of charts that are included in these reports. So what we do put on the website is a message that says if you would like to review the report or you would like to look at the report, if you make contact with the operations department or with the city, we will facilitate providing that in with whatever method is required.
Any other questions, comments? None? Okay. Mr. Lewis, next one is Infrastructure Needs Study and Facility Plan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Operations Department recommends the following. Committee approve the award of the Infrastructure Needs Study and Facility Plan for the city's water and sanitary sewer systems. Request for proposal number P-23-01 to Associated Engineering in the amount of $347,310 plus HST. City requires a consultant to assess the infrastructure needs and create facility plans for the city's water and sanitary sewer systems. The focus of the study is on maintaining level of service and to assist in planning necessary upgrades to support future growth for all users of the system. Included is a comprehensive review of the city's water distribution system and wastewater collection system with forecasting of required works and upgrades to those systems that will provide for future growth in both the City of Pembroke and the Township of Laurentian Valley. Additionally, the study will review the present achievable level of service for the water purification plant and the pollution control center and provide a 20-year facility plan for required upgrades and potential expansions that may be necessary for anticipated growth in both municipalities. The Operations Department publicly advertised the RFP. It closed on February 10th, 2023, and one proposal was received. That proposal was reviewed by the operations manager and was confirmed to meet the scope of the project. The proposal was also reviewed by the purchasing manager, deputy treasurer for compliance to ensure that it met the compliance and the requirements of the RFP. Associated Engineering is the consultant that performed the preliminary work on the study when reviewing available capacity during the recent Township of Laurentian Valley Shared Services Agreement development. We anticipate a project start in March with completion of the study in November of this year. which would allow for works to be included in the 2024 capital budget. The 2023 capital budget shows $200,000 unfinanced for this project, with the funds coming from future water and sewer rates. The proposal received is over the original budget, due partly to an increase in scope to include the city's wastewater collection system. As well, the proposal included an optimizing component, which will look at opportunities to optimize, retrofit, and repurpose existing infrastructure to maximize its value before considering build or expanding. This will be extremely beneficial moving forward and will help with budgeting and financial commitments. The total costing for the project will be included in the 2025 to 2029 water and sewer rate study, and it will be funded by the calculated water and sewer rates at that time. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Questions, comments, motions, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship. It's great to see the second bullet point under financial implications, but reusing existing infrastructure. Anyhow, this is very important, especially now that we have a new agreement finally with the Wrenchett Valley. It's very crucial to plan years ahead. So I make a motion to support the awarding of the contract to Associated Engineering for the quoted amount.
So there's a motion. Is there a seconder? So seconded by Councillor Frenier, then I have Councillor Keel.
I'm not sure, Mr. Lewis, if it's a question that you can necessarily answer, but when I look at $347,000 for a report, my eyes just about bulged out of my head. I mean, I get quips all the time as a lawyer that, you know, we're professional and it costs a lot to be a professional, but that's a lot of money for a report. In fact, this report costs more money than I think one of the new pieces of equipment that our water plant supervisor told us he'd be coming to council with. And I know you said that some things were added to the quote or whatnot, but is this what we look at when we're getting reports for these kinds of things, or are we kind of hamstrung because we need to get these done and the professionals know we need to get these done? I mean, I've never seen a report in my life that costs that much money.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'll look at this two ways. They're going to start this project. The team will start this project roughly mid-March, and they'll move through until the end of November. There's probably a team of 4 or 5 individuals. They'll work full-time on that. So if you start looking at the hourly wage of these professionals over that period of time, it's a significant amount of dollars. There's modeling that's required, so we will have a computer model of our infrastructure systems at the end of this. Anybody that understands programming will understand that that's a significant cost to get that type of stuff. It will give us the opportunity to plop not being the right word, of course, but to put a development at one corner of the city, run the program and see how that affects the existing infrastructure and what we have to do to that existing infrastructure. We'll take that one out, we'll put a different one in, we'll run the sequence again. So there is a significant amount. The other way to look at it is the cost to hire a consultant to do a design for the water main on Bennett Street for one stretch of roadway would be roughly $250,000 to $300,000, and we get one stretch of roadway. This is going to give us the basis for the next 20 years of design principles and moving forward.
Councillor Frenier?
I just want to say that I understand Councillor Keel's concern. When I first sat on council, I was flabbergasted by the amounts that we have to pay consultants and different things. This is not just a consultant's report, though, where they assess a situation and give us a written letter. So as Mr. Lewis just explained, it's a lot more technical in this aspect. But I tend to agree that we do pay a lot for consultants and different things. But when you're running a municipality, unfortunately, a lot of the time we need these for different reasons, either to get funding or to get partnerships with other groups, because they're not going to take our word for things. And that's a big part of this as well, is seeing it and knowing our costs for a cost-sharing agreement. So, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Lafreniere. So we have a motion on the floor, unless Councillor Lafreniere seconded it, so unless someone else wishes to speak to it, I'd call the question. Those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Mr. Lewis, next matter up, traffic control, Holy Name School Zone.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Operations Department provides the following report for information purposes. The department will complete the installation of additional signage in the area of Holy Name School Zone, bordered by First Avenue, Mary Street, and Trafalgar Road to assist with traffic control. Excuse me. Under Section 6.1 of Bylaw 2020-64, the Operations Department is authorized to erect and maintain such signs, traffic control devices, and other structures, plant, and equipment as required to regulate, direct, warn, or guide pedestrian and vehicular traffic for the safety and convenience of the public. The operations staff has reviewed the area of First Avenue and Mary Street after ratepayers raised concerns regarding the speed of traffic in the school zone around Holy Name School. We have identified that the following signage is required to supplement signage that's already in place. A school zone sign with maximum 40 kilometers an hour on both Trafalgar and Mary Street. School zone with maximum 40 kilometers an hour on the west side of First Avenue, north of Holy Name School. School zone ends on Trafalgar Road, northbound, and a stop sign at First Avenue and Front Street. Some school zone with speed restriction signage exists in the area. However, additional signage is recommended to ensure notification to the traveling public. The bylaw for the speed restriction is already in place. Although not required under the Ontario Traffic Manual for a T intersection, to provide a higher level of control for a three-leg intersection, staff is recommending the installation of a stop sign on First Avenue at Front Street. As this location, school children cross the street and they're within a half block of the school. If committee approves the addition of the stop sign, Schedule C of Bylaw 2020-64 will be amended to include the new stop condition, with that amendment being before council at a future meeting. The Operations Department has placed the speed display sign on Mary Street a number of times, and we have collected data along Mary Street. The speed sign data collected in the area does not suggest that there is a significant incidence of speeding on Mary Street, approaching Trafalgar Road, or nearing the school zone. Staff does intend to place the speed display sign in the area again in various different locations to obtain additional data and monitor the area. Additionally, staff will further consult with the OPP through the Police Services Board on reports of incidents along Mary Street in this area. Cost for signage, as noted, will be covered under the department's regular operations maintenance account. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Councillor Keel?
I move that that we recommend proceeding with this recommendation. You know, when I was sitting on the Police Services Board in my prior municipal career, we got a lot of complaints about speeding, and we, of course, it was right around that time that I arrived that through the mayor's efforts that we obtained, I think, our first speed measuring sign. And it started to occur to me that every time we moved that sign around to address people's complaints, that either the sign was working as its own deterrence, or people aren't speeding as much as other people are complaining about people speeding as much. I find these signs provide us with a lot of great information, especially when we're trying to make decisions here on council. I can tell you that this weekend I was down. I drove down to Prince Edward County to meet up with some friends of mine from the Toronto area, and down the 41 in Prince Edward County, these signs, a little more mobile than the ones we first had here in Pembroke on the trailer, were everywhere. So I certainly, I'm glad that we took a look at it. I'm glad that we're collecting data, because data-driven decisions are certainly better decisions being made. I certainly support this. I think anything we can do to certainly passively help our students, and of course we're all aware, and I'm sure everyone around this table, you know, remembers back when the school boards provided crossing guards and whatnot. And they, of course, have abrogated that duty and left the kids without any such supervision, which I think is unfortunate. So anything that we can do to drive this home, and yeah, I'll happily support this.
Seconder for the motion? Okay, I need a second. Okay, so Councilor Fernie is seconding it. Now Councilor Purcell.
Mr. Lewis, is there, do they double the fines in that area? Is that part of the signage that's going to be erected, similar to what's on Bell Street or Angus Campbell?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no. It's a school zone with a reduced speed. So in and around the school area, it's reduced at 40 kilometers an hour. That is the maximum speed enforceable at 40 kilometers an hour. The doubling of speed fines, if I understand correctly, is in community safe zones only, not the school zones. But it does have a reduced school zone, or reduced speed of 40 kilometers an hour that is enforceable.
Okay, thank you.
Just if I can add, so similar to Carmody Street going to Bishop Smith is a reduced speed, but it is not a community safety zone. Yeah. Any other comments or questions? If not, we have a motion on the floor. Those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Next, Mr. Lewis, warning sign installation on Eganville Road at Thompson Street.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The following report, again, is provided for information purposes. The department will complete installation of caution signage on Eganville Road at Thompson Street related to reduced sight distance. Operations staff has received concerns regarding safety on Eganville Road in and around the intersection of Thompson Street. Data has been collected on traffic speed in this area on several occasions, and there is not a significant speeding issue at the location. Staff has consulted the OPP regarding this area, and there was nothing notable in historic records or noted during a week-long focus patrol that was held in 2022. While reviewing Eganville Road traffic control, it was noted that the sightlines for visibility at the Thompson Street intersection do not meet the guidelines. A vehicle entering onto Eganville Road from the east side of the intersection has reduced sightlines to see onto Eganville Road, and the vehicles that are on Eganville Road may not be able to see the approaching vehicle on Thompson Street should it fail to stop. So generally, this is coming from the east side, approaching Eganville Road. There's a home on the right-hand side as you approach the intersection that's fairly close, and on the left-hand side, there's a bit of a hedge that goes around that one property. Staff reviewed the intersection for warrants for the installation of an all-way stop condition, and it does not meet the warrants. Thompson Street does not have Thompson Street does have a stop condition before entering onto Eganville Road. So Thompson Street is a stop condition, Eganville Road is not. Staff recommends the installation of hidden intersection signs on Eganville Road, approaching Thompson Street from both directions, to provide advance notice to vehicles approaching the intersection to use caution. A sign will also be placed on Thompson Street, east of Eganville Road, reading similar to caution, entering roadway, limited visibility. And this is being done to help make drivers aware of the limited visibility. Costs for the signage will be covered under the department's regular operations and maintenance account. I have included some pictures of what we anticipate the signage would be like. That's in the report. And that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So this one's for information only, but there might be some questions or comments. I have the Deputy Mayor and I have Councillor Keogh.
This is good to see. When I was out going door to door in that area, it was brought up. This was a major concern. And I've gone down that street a few times and tried to turn left. And yeah, people come zipping around the corner. So kudos to staff for implementing this.
Councillor Keogh?
My comments are perhaps less favorable. These caution signs, I worry about the number of people that actually, one, understand them, or two, do really anything. Like for instance, when you're on the Eganville Road driving, So I don't, I'm not opposed to this or whatnot, but I do question somewhat that sometimes when we put too many signs up, people stop paying attention to them. Local drivers, more so, stop paying attention to them. So I just, I think it's probably more beneficial in my eyes that the person coming onto Eganville Road, that they need to be the more diligent ones, because I wouldn't expect that people are going to drive with that much caution or slow a little when they come up from being told that there's an exit, hidden exit coming up. But I'll certainly defer to the experts, but I do, unlike the last one, which I saw great merit in, this one sort of has me wondering how much it actually helps the situation.
Councillor Frenier?
Through the chair, I've lived in this neighborhood my entire, the entire time I've lived in Pembroke, so over 40 years. I lived in that neighborhood, and now I live on Elgin, so I'm traveling that road several times a day. I've rarely seen an accident. I do agree, though, the visibility, especially if you're coming off Thompson, the east side of Eganville, is horrible. But I've never really seen any accidents at the corner or anything like that. And people have to slow down. When you're going down Eganville Road, I mean, they're not speeding around that corner. And if they are, well, they're going to end up in a ditch if it's winter. But, I mean, I support the signs anyway, but I'm surprised after all these years there weren't signs there before. So there just must be some new people living in that area that are finding it hard. But I agree with Councillor Keel. The real important sign is the one where you're going west on Thompson and you come up to Eganville. That's the real blind spot there. So,
If I could, Mr. Chair, I'll try and answer both at the same time. The existing signage that's on Eganville Road now basically just shows that there's a curve. And we've seen them, and every driver on the road has seen those, and we pass them all the time, and you kind of forget that they're even there. You take that tab and you put it underneath those signs, and you put the extra black slash across the sign that shows that there's an entrance over there, and people tend to pay attention a little bit more. Most tend to pay attention a little bit more. The fact that there hasn't been a whole lot of accidents in the area is likely due to the fact that everybody that comes to the intersection has done it for years. Over and over and over again, they know how to handle the intersection. This signage is going to help them. It's also going to help the one person that may be there that hasn't been there before. And although the sign is likely going to say caution, reduce visibility, it doesn't mean poke going out onto Eganville Road. Because with the reduced visibility, you need to make sure that the person that's on Eganville Road doesn't hit you, so you have to gain your speed fairly quickly so that you can get up to that speed. We did make contact with the OPP. In 2018, there was one complaint of speeding. 2019, there was a complaint of a dirt bike with no helmets. In 2022, there was a report of dangerous conditions, which sparked this whole review of the intersection. And in 2022, as I mentioned, the focus patrol was a week long, and there was no violations. So it's a intersection where we want to point to and say, be cautious in and around this intersection, but it's not of dire need.
And if I may, it's a measured approach is what I would describe it. So in 2022, there was the concern raised. There was also a school bus involved, but it's a measured approach. Deploy the assets that we have. Do focus patrol. It's not, if nothing, I've learned that operations doesn't just jump at something with a solution. It's let's analyze it, figure it out, and what is the measured approach, as opposed to having Mr. Lewis come and say we're putting a four-way stop on Eganville Road, which I can say that there is certain ratepayers that would save that, but that's not the approach from the operations department as not being warranted. So that one was for information purposes. And I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. I have the deputy mayor and I have Councillor Keel. We are adjourned operations. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the council meeting for February 21st, 2023. I would ask that everyone please take a moment to stand for an opening prayer or reflection. Before opening this meeting of council, I would ask that those who wish, each in your own way, silently join in a prayer of guidance over these proceedings. Thank you. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest this evening? Seeing none. We have a series of different minutes this evening. So the first one is the approval of the minutes of council, regular meeting, February 7th, 2023. Is there a mover and a seconder? I have Councillor Purcell, Councillor Frenier. Those in favor? That is approved. Then we have adoption of, first up is Parks and Recreation Committee, January 17th, 2023. Do I have a mover and a seconder? So I have the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Keel. Those in favor? That's carried. Next is the Operations Committee. It was January 17th, 2023, being circulated in your packages. I have Councillor Keel, seconded by Councillor Lafreniere. Those in favor? That's carried. And then lastly, to receive minutes from the Pembroke Heritage Murals, February 1st, 2023. I have Councillor Giacono and seconded by Councillor Purcell. Those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Under bylaws, the first up we have is 2023-15 Waterworks. Councillor Giacono.
Thank you, Your Worship. Members of council, moved by myself and seconded by the Deputy Mayor, Brian Abdallah, that bylaw 2023-15 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 83-93 being a bylaw to provide for the administration, operation, and regulation of waterworks be adopted and passed, and further that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation, waiting your signature, Your Worship.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Giacono, seconded by Councillor, the Deputy Mayor. That bylaw 2023-15 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 83-93 being a bylaw to provide for the administration, operation, and regulation of waterworks be adopted and passed, and further that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Councillor Giacono.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a little overview. The 2023-2024 water rates have been calculated using the average annual rate increases over a 10-year study period as recommended in the preliminary water and wastewater rate study findings that were prepared by Watson and Associates, Economists Limited. Water flat rates will increase by 5.7% and meter rates will increase by 9.8%. The water sewer collection policy has also been updated as per the report presented at the February 7th Finance and Administration Committee. Your Worship, as was indicated earlier this evening by two of our new councillors, the indications that we have a state-of-the-art waterworks, whether it's by the taking of water and the treatment of water, is initial to the safety of our communities, and it allows people to want to come and live here. And there is a cost of doing business, of course. As chemicals increase in costs, etc., we have to, unfortunately, pass that along to the ratepayer. But you can be guaranteed that you get a clean drink of water and that when you flush the toilet, it will go for treatment. Thank you.
Thank you. Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Next, we have bylaw 2023-17, sale of land on Steele Street. Councillor Keel. Councillor Purcell.
Thank you, Your Worship. So moved by Pat Lafreniere, seconded by myself, that bylaw 2023-17, the bylaw to authorize the proposed sale of lands be adopted and passed, and further that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Thank you.
Thank you. So I have moved by Councillor Lafreniere, seconded by Councillor Purcell, that bylaw 2023-17, a bylaw to authorize the proposed sale of lands, be adopted and passed, and further that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Does anyone wish to speak to it? If not, the motion is here. I'll call the question. Those in favor? Against? It's carried.
Your worship, just on a point of order, have we missed a bylaw 2023-18, or is that further on in the business?
Next up, so while you're
Oh,
standing,
sorry.
while you're standing, Councillor Jack.
I had it at the top of my agenda. Sorry, I thought I was dreaming. Thank you,
Councillor,
Your-
if
thank
you wanted to
Your
address
Worship.
that matter.
Moved by myself and seconded by Brian Abdallah, Deputy Mayor, that bylaw 2023-18, being a bylaw to authorize the amendment of zoning bylaw 2020-05 regarding 574 Pembroke Street East, be adopted and passed, and further that the said bylaw be signed by yourself and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Waiting your signature, Your Worship.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Jacquino, seconded by the Deputy Mayor, that bylaw 2023-18, bylaw to authorize the amendment of the zoning bylaw 2020-05 regarding 574 Pembroke Street East be adopted and passed, and further that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Councillor Jacquino, did you wish to speak to it?
No, thank you, Your Worship. It was discussed earlier.
Okay, we'll call the question. Those in favor? And that's carried. Under motions, I have Resolution 2023-01. Councillor Lafreniere.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Troy Purcell, be it resolved that the Corporation of the City of Pembroke approves the City of Pembroke Drinking Water System 2022 Annual Water Reports.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Lafreniere, seconded by Councillor Purcell, be it resolved that the Corporation of the City of Pembroke approves the City of Pembroke Drinking Water System 2022 Annual Water Reports. Those in favor? And that's carried. Next, Councillor Purcell, Resolution 2023-02.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Pat Lafreniere, Councillor Lafreniere, be it resolved that the Corporation of the City of Pembroke approves the City of Pembroke Pollution Control Center 2022 Annual Compliance Reports.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Purcell, seconded by Councillor Lafreniere. Be it resolved that the Corporation of the City of Pembroke approves the City of Pembroke Pollution Control Center 2022 Annual Compliance Reports. Those in favor? And that's carried. For this evening, the Mayor's report. I had the pleasure to welcome a new business to the community on behalf of Council called the Party Shop by Inspired Events and Decor, located at 29 Pembroke Street West. I would ask that everyone please support this business as well as all of our local businesses. I'd like to remind everyone that the coldest night of the year event is soon upon us. The event will be held on February 25th, with the proceeds locally going to the Grind Pembroke. I would ask that anyone who wishes to consider entering a team, entering yourself as a walker, or consider donating to the many walkers and teams already entered. I understand that they are now surpassed the 65% of their goal, and so I would ask that everyone who can to certainly support the coldest night of the year initiative for the Grind Pembroke. Lastly, I want to indicate that, as I'm sure that we've all heard, is that the norovirus is now here. So it seems like we address COVID, and now we're addressing norovirus. I would encourage everyone to stay safe, wash your hands, cough into your arm, and certainly be respectful of others. Councillor updates. Oh, sorry, notices of motion. So I have the Deputy Mayor.
I have a notice of motion for the next meeting to reinstate the Seniors Advisory Committee.
Notice, Councillor Keel.
I give notice of motion for the next council meeting, recognizing the importance of Renfrew County VTAC and strongly encouraging the provincial government to continue to fund Renfrew County VTAC. The funding, of course, which ends next month, so this will just be a motion of support and encouragement to the government.
Any other notices of motions? Oh,
Not a motion, just a report, Your Worship.
okay, so Councillor updates. Councillor Jacquino, you want to kick us off?
Thank you, Your Worship. First of all, I just want to focus in on, send our deepest regrets to the Mahood family. Mika Mahood was a senior individual that worked with the Victoria Senior Center. She was an outstanding individual who just passed away recently. She was the type of person that we could all, take a look at to live our lives by, to make the world a better place. She came to council often, looking to ensure that the seniors' needs were met, and I just want to say that she'll be missed. As well, Your Worship, I'd like to thank Stratton Allen and the Pembroke Mall for donating an empty store space for the heritage murals. One of our murals are going to be repainted, and they're on large panels. So it's nice to get it, get it indoors where it can be done properly, and then in the spring have it put back in place. So I'd like to thank them and Jane Brophy as well at the mall for letting us do this. And I would encourage people to take a look to see how the actual painting is done. So if you haven't seen how a mural is put together in sections and panels, you're more than welcome to visit the East End Mall. Thank you.
Mr. Jacquinot, Councillor Keel.
Thank you, Your Worship. I want to, I know we did at the last council meeting, but I want to again congratulate the success of the Ontario Winter Games. Since the last council meeting, I had the opportunity for its second weekend to attend some of the amateur wrestling that took place at Fellows High School. It was all youth participants. They certainly appeared to be having a lot of fun, and there was both men's and female wrestling and different weight classes. So we certainly had a lot of medals given out, and it certainly speaks to our community to welcome all those individuals to Renfrew County and to Pembroke for such an amazing and outstanding event. I had the opportunity last week to visit the water treatment plant and the pollution control plant, and I want to thank our CAO and everyone working at those two operations for giving us a tour and for keeping us safe and making sure that the amenities that we probably don't think about much in our daily lives are there when we need them throughout the day. And then just today, I had the opportunity to visit SRB Technologies. This is a truly amazing local company here in Pembroke that has reach literally around the world. So they employ 35 to 40 people. So it's a good job. It's a good workplace here in Renfrew County. And anytime that you're on an airplane or you're in a building, it's entirely possible that one of the exit signs that you're viewing was made right here in the city of Pembroke. So it's great to see a local workforce sending things around the world. And of course, they're located right here in Pembroke on Boundary Road. And then finally, Your Worship, I just wish to take a moment to, of course, recognize the fact that this Friday we're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of the war in Ukraine. I know everyone around this table, and I'm sure everyone watching at home, has unfortunately had to sit through a year of the absolute atrocities that are going on in Eastern Europe. Renfrew County, of course, has a very significant Eastern European population and background. I myself, it was East Germany that my family came from a few years ago. In fact, the part of Germany that the Kiel family came from, following some border shifts, is actually now part of Poland. So I know a lot of people view this war with great tragedy here locally, and I'm sure everyone on council of course shares the sadness that has come with that. And I do understand that that Your Worship has approved the flying of the Ukrainian flag here at City Hall, and certainly I don't pretend to speak for everyone here, but I know this is a global event that has local influence.
Councillor Frenier?
Well, I won't belabor it. I was going to comment on the Ontario Winter Games again. So 20 events over 2 weekends throughout the county and the city of Pembroke, as Councillor Keel said. And I want to thank Fellows High School for lending us their bleachers at the Pembroke Curling Centre the weekend before their wrestling event. And I want to thank the mayor for taking part in medal presentations. The City of Pembroke for lending us carpets to go out on the slippery ice to present some medals. And big congratulations to Peter Emo, the warden of the county. He and his team pulled this off. It was supposed to happen last year, but it was canceled in the last few months prior because of COVID. But it went off. It was a fantastic event. Thousands of people visited the county and the City of Pembroke and contributed to the economy, and a lot of them want to come back because of the hospitality and everything. So just congratulations to the county and all the volunteers that made it a success. Thank you.
Councillor Fernier, Councillor Purcell.
I had the pleasure of attending a series in terms of environmental remediation seminars and webinars through Canadian Nuclear Laboratories. So decommissioning of Building 250 at Sierra, which is a huge undertaking. Also CNL's integrated waste management strategy and the MPD closure project. Just a lot of work that's going on in terms of the environmental remediation components and decommissioning of various sensitive buildings and sites. Just a kudos goes out to ACL in regards to NCNL to the hard work that they're doing and very professional work in terms of performing this work in a safe manner, protecting not only our environment but also the Ottawa River. That being said, I also chaired the Renfrew County District Health Unit Governance. We're looking at hiring a medical officer of health, and there'll be an announcement that will be coming out this week or next in regards to that issue. I also went to the public library as property chair and toured the library looking at opportunities for improvements and did a facility tour looking at deficiencies and capturing those deficiencies so that we can build a better strategy going forward and to look at opportunities to address some of these issues. We also, Councillor Abdallah, myself, and members of the Multicultural Festival Planning Committee met, and that'll be hosted in July 14th and 15th of this year. Great turnout from previous years and really great tourism opportunity for the City of Pembroke to shine. Toured the waste treatment plants as well as the water treatment plant, and I already talked a little bit about that earlier. So just kudos to the operators and the staff of those plants. I met with I sit on the County of Renfrew Health Committee and discussed budgetary discussions in regards to paramedic services, long-term care services. Again, we're asked to do a lot more with less money, so there are concerns in regards to, maintaining service levels, especially when it comes to paramedic services, and of course, long-term care have big issues in regards to hiring staff and maintaining staff complements. They're actually maintaining the 4 hours per resident right now in regards to care. But the problem is that they just don't have the staffing. So, there's plenty of job opportunities, even through the local colleges, for people to become engaged and get the employment. I also met with, with the director of Parks and Recs to discuss, initiatives coming forward and making sure that we're have alignment in regards to, any future updates with Parks and Recs. So busy last little while. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. A couple of things here. First one is Soup Fest. Next Saturday at the Farmers Market over here. We want to thank Priceless Maintenance for clearing and maintaining the area. We have 11 downtown restaurants. I believe I've got 2 tickets for my wife and I, Mary. I believe they're $11 each. You have to buy them online because they need advance orders. And it starts at 11 o'clock. And the website is downtownsoupfest2023.eventbrite.ca. Eventbrite is EVENTBRITE. For more information, you can call the Pembroke Business Improvement Association office at 613-629-5555. And all proceeds go to the Robbie Dean Center, which Councillor Keel, you're the vice chair of that, I understand. I want to read a statement here. 2 weeks ago, I had the opportunity to attend Roma, the Rural Ontario Municipal Association Conference in Toronto. I attended sessions about affordable housing, economic development, future power generation for the province, spoke with many municipal leaders, attended various speaker sessions. I plan on giving highlights of the sessions I attended at a later date. One of the most frequent questions people asked me at the conference was related to our city's recent media headlines around the issue of equity and diversity. Clearly, people are paying attention to Pembroke City Council. As I was absent from the January 3rd, 2023 Pembroke City Council meeting, many people have been wondering about where I stand on the issue. I could not attend this important council meeting because I had prearranged travel plans to attend the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. Citizens from diverse cultures around the world attend CES. The Consumer Electronics Show connects innovators, decision makers, influencers, visionaries, and potential customers at the world's most influential technological event. In my capacity as a part-time market developer, I worked at the Snapmaker Technologies 3D printing booth. I have been associated with Snapmaker since their inception over 6 years ago in Shenzhen, China, where I lived and worked. On January 3rd, Council made its decision, and I respect that decision and the democratic process that followed. Since entering municipal politics, my vision and campaign slogan has been, and continues to be, building a community for everyone. I want people to understand that I continue to believe that this is an important issue. I'm committed to continuing the important work with partners to advance equity in our community. I want to be part of the solution of breaking down many of the systematic barriers that exist. I will continue to work on issues that disproportionately affect marginalized communities such as homelessness, public transit, food security, and affordable housing. I will continue to support and attend Pride, PFLAG, and any related community initiatives and events. I will continue to attend and support Indigenous rights and truth and reconciliation initiatives and events. I have been heavily involved in and will continue to support the Multicultural Festival. Calling out racism, bigotry, sexism, and inequality when I see it remains essential to me. Racism does not go away and hide behind a rock. Speaking out, acknowledging, advocating, taking action, and doing the right thing to work with others towards a just and fair society is imperative. When we work together towards building a community for everyone, it stands to follow that everyone can feel safe and welcome. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Next item, confirming bylaw, Councillor Purcell.
Your Worship, the bylaw 04-2023 to confirm the proceedings of the regular meeting of council for February 21st, 2023 be adopted and passed, and furthermore that and said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation.
Not memorized even after these number of years. But anyways, Councillor Purcell moves and Councillor Frenier seconds that bylaw 04-2023 to confirm the proceedings of the regular meeting of council for February 21st, 2023 be adopted and passed, and further that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Those in favor? That's carried, and I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. I have the deputy mayor, second by Councillor Keel. We're adjourned.